95% of humanity freezes to death. After being betrayed and murdered in that nightmare, he wakes up before the apocalypse with one broken ability: infinite storage. While everyone wastes time living normal lives, he turns his apartment into an impenetrable bunker and hoards enough supplies to survive for decades. When the world finally freezes over, starving survivors begin knocking on his door. But after dying once because he trusted people, will he ever open it again? The end of the world came, and with it the Ice Age. The true destruction of the human species had begun. People were doomed to die. There was no more hope, only hatred and cruelty remained. But Zhang Yi was reborn before the end of the world began, gained the power of the cosmos, and with a ton of his own savings, decided to do everything for his own safety. In this life, he would get his revenge in full, but before that happened, he was subjected to cruel torture. People became so insane that they began to engage in cannibalism, and MC became one of the victims. Feeling terrible pain, Zhang Yi cried. He just lay there and waited for his end. The girl named Fan Yuchen, who had deceived him, paid no attention to his suffering and demanded her share in the form of his hand. He realized that he'd been so naive. If there was life after death, it was for what they had done to him, and he swore to take revenge on them 100-fold. And then, when life finally left him, he suddenly opened his eyes and jumped up. He caught his breath and thought about what just happened. Hadn't those monsters killed him? He checked his phone. The date was November 12th, a month before the onset of the Ice Age. This meant he had gone back in time. In December 2050, the Earth was hit by a huge meteorite, which caused global climate change. The average temperature in Tianhai was between 60 and 70 degrees below zero, and a blizzard that lasted for over a month covered the city in a blanket of snow and ice. This caused the mass extinction of various species, including humans. He managed to survive thanks to the supplies he had stored at home, and those idiots simply stole them, and then they expended him. His main task now is to ensure his own safety and accumulate enough supplies to survive the end of the world and get revenge on those idiots. He needs to take care not only of entertainment, but also of weapons to be able to give them a worthy rebuff. Suddenly something pricked his eye. He immediately rubbed it, thinking that a speck of dust got in, but when he opened his eyes, he realized that he found himself in another dimension, so spacious that he could store tons of resources here. And if he could transfer that food warehouse here, then he would have enough food for 10 lifetimes. He breathed a sigh of relief. The end of the world was in a month, so he needed to eat more delicious things that he would not be able to taste later. So right now, he went to the most expensive restaurant, bought a lot of food for a lot of money, and the waiter was shocked that he ate so quickly, without drinking anything, and thought that he came from a hungry land. Enjoying the food, MC thought that during the end of the world, people prayed for instant noodles, not to mention eating something like that. When he was finally full, he left the restaurant, and since his order exceeded 50,000, they even gave him a VIP card. He politely declined. Apparently, he wouldn't need it at the end of the world, and at that moment, two girls walked past them, that same Yu Qin and her friend. She smirked and told her that she was lucky. Her faithful dog, it turns out, was quite the moneybags. Seeing this, Yu Qin was surprised. Was he really just pretending to be poor? Well, since they had already encountered each other, why shouldn't she give it a try? She approached Zhang Yi with an embarrassed smile and said that it was such a coincidence. Where did he come from? His face immediately darkened. She was pretending to be sweet and innocent in front of him, but it was because of her that he was killed, and his ribs were made into soup. He showed her his VIP card and said he went to the store to buy something and figured he couldn't get it cheap in this situation, and decided to use free labor. Yu Qin said he wouldn't believe it was a coincidence, but they were also going to the store, so they were on their way, and her friend confirmed her words. They were his neighbors, so they would be happy to help him. After that, they went to the grocery store. He put the groceries in carts, and they rolled them all over the store, and Yu Qin asked, did he decide to feed the whole city, or did he have some plans he didn't tell them about? Her friend asked if he was by any chance going on a hike. She didn't think rich people did that. He loaded the cart with a bunch of goodies and told them that anything can happen in life. What if the end of the world comes? He wants to be prepared just in case. These words made them uneasy, and Yu Qin asked him not to say stupid things. Maybe he'll treat them to dinner for helping him today? He told her he's been really busy lately, but they could see each other next month. Her friend asked with displeasure, would a man like him waste his time shopping in person? She didn't think he was such a cheapskate. Yu Qin nudged her with her elbow, indicating that she should shut up, and with an awkward smile told Zhang Yi that she was just a little tired and that he shouldn't take her words seriously. They were friends. There was no point in counting other people's money. The girl agreed with her and said that she said it accidentally and that he shouldn't take it to heart, and her friend added that he was a good person. She was sure he understood everything. Was he done shopping? He gave them a displeased look and laughed, saying that everything was fine, so they shouldn't worry. Time passed. They reached the apartment complex where Zhang Yi lives, and the poor girls were already tired of pushing these two carts. MC thought that it doesn't matter if they think he's crazy after this. He doesn't care. All he wants is revenge on those who killed him in his past life. Some woman with a child saw them and thought that there was a lot of food here. Did this guy decide to fill his belly and leave them all without groceries? She approached him and politely asked if this was a new delivery to the store. After all, they had just brought in groceries recently. The girls told her that these were his purchases, they were just helping him, and the woman turned to him, saying that he wouldn't eat that much. Does he really want to leave Aunt Lin without groceries? While he wasn't looking, her child reached for a chocolate bar and had already grabbed it. Then Zhang Yi quickly turned around and snatched it from his hands, saying that he bought these things for himself. The child immediately became angry and started to freak out, calling him an idiot and threatening to kill him so he would give him the chocolate bar. Then he pointed angrily at him and told him to just try and say another word. The child burst into tears of fear and clung to the old woman, and she asked angrily how old he was, that he had decided to raise other people's children. Was it so hard for him to give the child the chocolate bar? She would buy it and just bring him the money later. She wouldn't cheat him. He showed her his QR code and said it was his, and that she should either transfer the money to him now or go to the supermarket and buy it herself. The woman was shocked, calling him a scoundrel and then shouting, "Where has all the respect for elders gone? She is the head of the management committee of the residential complex. Soon he will see how this all turns out for him." MC ignored her and went into the elevator. The girls kindly helped him carry the groceries into the apartment, and before leaving, told him not to forget to invite them over. He promised to invite them next time, then closed the door and decided to first move the provisions into that space to see how it all worked, and then he would sort everything and start looking for medicine. He glanced at his list of necessary things for the apocalypse and decided it was important to think about heating. A fireplace was more than an option, and he also needed to think about insulating the house, turning it into an impenetrable steel fortress. And the only remaining problem was weapons. Bladed weapons like a crowbar or an axe weren't that hard to come by, and he could find bows and crossbows. But where could he find firearms? He decided to rest on the couch. In any case, he had another month in reserve. If he ran out of money, he would sell his assets. The next day, Zhang Yi checked the groceries. The vegetables and meat hadn't spoiled, but the fish had died. It seems that living beings cannot survive in that dimension, since time moves differently there. Well, since he managed to preserve the freshness of the food, he should try experimenting with ready-made dishes. He called the restaurant and lied that he was organizing a large-scale party for his friends, that it would last 3 days and 3 nights, and therefore he needed a lot of food. The manager immediately contacted him and said that his order would cost him at least 1 million. They would organize everything, and he only needed to make a prepayment of 200,000. He agreed to this, after which he transferred the money to the restaurant and the order was successfully processed. Now it was time for something else. He took out the property documents and thought that in a month the money would lose its value, so he should use it to the fullest. By mortgaging the house, he received a lot of money, and if you add it to what his parents left him, his savings are still not enough. If you do not take into account the cost of the banquet, which exceeds 1 million, the remainder should be enough to furnish the house. However, he still needs to buy medicine and weapons, so he doesn't have enough money for everything. Noticing how lost in thought, a man called out to him and asked, "He doesn't need money, does he? There are so many rules in these banks. Why shouldn't he use their services?" MC smirked and asked, "Does he have enough authority? We're talking about 1 million. He was very glad that he quickly found the right person and asked if he could really give him money. He needed 5 million. And if he helped him with that, he would pay him back within 3 months. The man said that it wasn't a problem, they were an experienced company in such matters, and so he suggested that he go and discuss everything in the office. He brought him to the company, introduced him to the director, and said that he wanted to take out a loan from them. The director turned to the potential client and asked how much he planned to take and for how long. Did he know what their interest rate was? His subordinate asked him to pay special attention to this client. His business needed financial investment, and he would return the money as soon as he overcame an internal crisis. Zhang Yi confirmed this, assuring him that he would pay everything back as soon as possible, so he didn't care how high the interest rate was. The director smiled and said the rate was 40%. He would take 5 million and return 7 million. As soon as they signed the contract, the money would be transferred to his account. MC thanked him with a smile, then began signing the contract. The man said that in order to collect the money, he had to provide something valuable as collateral. He replied that his house was worth more than 5 million. He would use it as collateral, and he also had a car worth 300,000, which they could also take if he didn't return the money on time. The director said that his house was worth 4 million at most, so he didn't know how he was going to borrow 5 million. Zhang Yi begged him for help. He really needed the money, at least 4.5 million. The director immediately refused, and the MC nervously exclaimed that he'd take 4 million and pay them back 7 million. For his sake, the man decided to make an exception, and Zhang Yi thought that of course such loans were no good, but there was still a month left until the end of the world, and he didn't think these pigheads would survive and shake him down. After receiving the money, he headed for the exit, and the man quietly told the boss that this guy was clearly mentally ill. He borrowed 4 million using a house worth 5 million as collateral. The director smiled and said they'd see where he'd get the money. At this rate, they'd already met their monthly quota. Such a large client couldn't be missed, and his subordinate said he'd contact the guys to find out if he had any other assets. At this time, MC got into his car. He grinned and thought that they were such wonderful people, giving him a lot of money. Now he could make his plans come true. He went to the Zhonglong Security Company, one of the largest companies in China, which provides security for many politicians and celebrities. In a past life, he heard that the son of a tycoon built himself a shelter worth $1 billion. It was amazing how such rich people could exist in their world. All this time he sat and waited, and finally a sales department manager named Huai Zhen approached him to help him. Zhang Yi vigorously shook his hand and said that he needed their company to build him a safe shelter, one that could withstand even the end of the world. He replied that they were a world-class company, and he was sure they could meet his needs. The prices were listed in the catalog. He could examine everything himself. MC glanced at the house plan. This company offered reinforcement with aircraft-grade steel, 200mm thick alloy, and complete replacement of walls, floors, and ceilings. In addition, they also offered ultra-strong bulletproof glass to withstand extreme temperatures, a ventilation system with filtration that prevents any toxic gases from passing through, a video surveillance system with cameras inside and outside the house with no blind spots and real-time monitoring, and the most basic, an armored door, just like in a bank vault, capable of withstanding even a small bomb blast. Zhang Yi grinned and thought that his goal was to turn his house into an iron box no one could penetrate. Zhen, meanwhile, thought that while he might not know his true goals, there were plenty of rich people in the world who cared about their safety and their money. He was a certain type of client. He took the house plan and said that no matter where the building was located or how big it was, after such a transformation it would become a truly impenetrable fortress. MC asked if he had any connections to the army, to which he replied that he had previously been a mercenary in another country, so he had some knowledge. Then an idea occurred to Zhang Yi. He asked with a grin, "Will he be able to get a weapon?" Zhen replied with a serious expression that such things weren't resolved that way. "Is someone threatening him?" He smiled awkwardly and told him that he had gotten into a fight with some people on the road, and they had threatened him, and he was sure he had seen a firearm in their hands. His house project would cost 8 million, including all that it entailed. It wouldn't be difficult for him to help him, right? The man smiled and thought that while he had connections, that didn't mean he should help people he knew nothing about. He replied that the construction would take about half a month, and if he could find a way to help him with this issue during that time, he would let him know. MC said he'd wait for news and decided to head to a hunting club, as it was the best place to find bladed weapons. He bought a bunch of guns, made up a cover story about going to Africa to hunt with friends, and then got in the car, thinking he was lucky to have a hunter's review. If anyone had any questions about the bow, crossbow, and hunting knife, they had nothing to worry about. Arriving home, he saw a delivery arriving, but the security guard wouldn't let them in, as bringing in that many items required the owner's consent. He couldn't let them in. Zhang Yi approached him and told the man it was his delivery, and he asked, perplexed, how much food he needed to have it delivered in dozens of trucks. He could set at least 100 tables here, so why would he need that much? He replied that it was a delivery from a 5-star hotel, and he figured it would need food for 1,000, not 100 tables. The people who came to the noise were surprised and said that this banquet cost at least several million. This guy was definitely hiding something. Yukin was among them. She realized that he had no shortage of money and thought that he really was rich. Then she couldn't let him be disappointed in her. The MC sent the trucks to the warehouse, and seeing Yuchen sweetly posing for him, he mentally told her to just continue to misunderstand everything. When she realized the truth, he would send her to hell with his own hands. He entered the warehouse, and a man greeted him with a smile and said that the banquet for 500 tables had been delivered. After wishing him a pleasant evening, he left, and Zhang Yi looked at this huge pile of boxes of food and moved them to his space. Now he has wonderful hot dishes for every taste. He will be able to fill his belly with delicacies for the rest of his days. The next day came. People from the security company came to his house to install the equipment. At that moment, he was sitting in the hallway and waiting. His neighbors were giving him strange looks, thinking he was crazy for preparing for some kind of end of the world, but he ignored them. He received a message from the manager, who informed him that in 3 days, someone was ready to provide him with what he asked for, but the price was quite high. He agreed without any problem, after which he told the workers that he would leave everything to them, and he would temporarily live in a hotel. One of the construction workers told him not to worry, he could rely on them, and he left with the thought that in a month, they would all understand who the real idiot was. He went to the supermarket warehouse to see manager Zhou and said that he needed his help. His sister and her husband run the company, so they could help each other. The men smiled nervously, saying they weren't allowed to use their power for personal gain, but MC offered him double the price and assured him he wouldn't suffer any losses, so he agreed, saying he spoke fluently. He always worked hard, so he'd grant him a 20-day vacation and would deliver all the things tomorrow. Having agreed, Zhang Yi was overjoyed and transferred the money, then went to the warehouse and thought there were enough food, tools, and everything necessary for at least 1,000 people. He put his cap on his head, deciding to hide his face just in case, since he couldn't afford any mistakes right now. He reached the break room, where Yuqin and her friend Zhou Peng were. He asked her to go to a concert this weekend. He already had 2 tickets, but she politely declined, saying she had a date. Of course, she was lying to him. Seeing Zhang Yi passing in the hallway, he immediately called out indignantly and said it was unfair. How could he force a girl to help carry his things? She came to work today with a sore back, and he hoped he wouldn't pester her with such requests anymore. Yuqin smiled, saying that she didn't have any pain, and the MC looked at her with displeasure. It turned out she had already managed to spill the beans to him. To calm Peng down, she said that she just felt like she had a little back pain, and then he ordered Zhang Yi to immediately give her 500 yuan for the doctor. He said that she herself offered to help him. He didn't ask for it. Besides, who is he to order him around? Seeing his threatening look, Peng immediately backed down and said that he just decided to talk to him, and he got so angry. He turned to Yuqin and said that he did wrong, so she should stay away from him. After that, MC left, and she thought, why did he change so much? It seems to her that he is like a completely different person. He no longer behaves like before. Something is definitely wrong here. Zhang Yi came to the hotel. As soon as he took a bath, he saw a message from Yuqin in which she wrote that she thinks something strange has been happening to him lately. He started buying groceries in bulk, decided to do some renovations. Something happened? After reading her message, he realized she was starting to doubt him, so she wrote to him that she had been feeling lonely lately since they barely communicated, but he decided to ignore her. Meanwhile, Yuqin was outraged. She exclaimed, "What's wrong with this idiot?" She even took the initiative in communicating, and he doesn't answer her. Her friend, who had just gotten out of the shower, said that he really was strange lately. Who knows why he bought so many products, and even organized a banquet. It's like he's preparing for the end of the world. Yuqin asked if something really was coming, and he somehow found out about it and was preparing. Her friend laughed and said that she was such a fool. If something was really coming, everyone would be talking about it by now. She decided to give her a massage and suggested that she calm down. If they also started stocking up on food, they would be laughed at. She agreed with her and decided not to think about it. A week later, the gun he ordered arrived at MC's. It might be a bit pricey, but the quality is excellent. He'll feel much more at peace with this thing when the end of the world comes. Someone called his apartment. It was the courier, asking him to sign for the package. He signed and thought that now he had emergency medication that would definitely come in handy, but there was still something left. He told the courier that he actually needed to order one more thing. Could he help him? He agreed without any problem and asked where he should have it delivered. At that very moment, he received a message saying that the construction would be finished today and that he could come and accept the work. He told the courier that he was just going there and that he would give him a ride. Arriving at his apartment, Zhang Yi quickly looked around and thought that they deserved to be called the best company in China. Their speed and quality were unmatched. The company employee said that, in accordance with his requirements, they covered all the walls with 200mm thick sheets. The ventilation system is capable of filtering any harmful gas, so he is not afraid of attacks from outside. In addition, they completely redid the thermal insulation system, according to the architectural plan of the Arctic Research Institute. Thanks to the stove, he will be able to heat this room to 99.5%. They went out to the balcony. He said that all the glass here is bulletproof. It is even stronger than the alloy that covers his home. Everything is designed to ensure the room is bright enough for him to observe what is happening outside. Furthermore, to ensure his safety, they installed a camera system, a total of 300 units throughout the building. This will allow him to monitor each floor. MC shook his hand, saying that he was very pleased with the result, and the man thanked him. He is confident that this shelter will live up to his expectations. After that, Zhang Yi walked him to the exit and thought with a grin that it was a pity they wouldn't be able to check it all out, because it was unknown whether they would survive. Stepping out onto the balcony, he saw the last batch of supplies arriving, the most scarce and most important thing during survival: water. He decided to go down and help them, and people, as always, gathered around to watch and discuss this idiot Zhang Yi. A few days ago, he was doing something with his house, bringing in steel plates at least 10 centimeters thick. Apparently, he was building a shelter, just like in the movies. And now he bought water, thinking that there would be problems with it in the city. They just laughed at him, but Zhang Yi knew that they would all die, and he would survive. Uncle Yu, who brought him this water, asked why he needed so many supplies. If he needed help, he should just let him know. MC smiled and thought that last time, Uncle Yu gave his last supplies to a mother and child who were already dying, which is why he died himself. He was also one of the few who were kind to him. He whispered in his ear that the temperature this year would be abnormally low. He received information that the winter would be harsh, so he advised him to stock up on food and water just in case, so as not to suffer later when prices rise. Uncle Yu asked with a serious face if he was sure this information was reliable. He told him that he had prepared thoroughly. If he was worried, he could at least stock up on instant noodles and mineral water. He took his words into account and said that he lived alone, so it was okay if he bought more food. And then his friend grabbed his hand and told him not to believe him. Usually, those who agitate you to buy something are trying to drag you into something. The man asked him not to say that. This guy could definitely be trusted, and then apologized to Zhang Yi. He had simply gotten carried away, and he thought that it was his job to warn them, and whether to believe them or not was up to them. In the remaining time, he spent every last yuan on supplies. In addition, he focused on his physical training and learned to use a firearm to meet the coming end of the world. There were 20 days left until the end of the world, and every day he spent money eating delicious food, buying groceries, and practicing shooting. And so, when 3 days remained, he decided to come to work early so as not to be suspected of missing things, and then add a sleeping pill to their tea so that everyone would fall asleep and not know what he was doing. He came to his colleagues with a tray of tea and asked if they were tired. He brought them some tea so they could take a break. They all pounced on the warm drink, and one of them said he was so tired and it was still so cold outside. MC thought the sleeping pills would take effect in about half an hour, and he was right. They all fell asleep, and he went to get everything he needed. First, he turned off the equipment, went into the warehouse, and then moved one shelf of products to his dimension. First, he decided to move everything, and then sort it if necessary. Waving his arms in all directions, he took everything in sight and thought that with this kind of productivity, he could easily clean out the entire warehouse. Having uploaded most of the warehouse's contents to the other dimension, he sighed tiredly, and then he saw the boxes he hadn't had time to take yet. Inside were warm clothes, the latest technological development of 2050. These things are capable of withstanding abnormally low temperatures. Of course, he took them. Now, with such a quantity of supplies, even in the face of an ice age, he will be able to live comfortably. He returned to the break room, drank some water, and thought that no one would even think that one person could do all this. He should hold on a little longer, and then this secret would disappear among the other mysteries of the Ice Age. To avoid arousing suspicion, he lay down on the sofa, pretended to fall asleep, and was soon awakened by the other workers, excitedly saying that something serious had happened. He sleepily rubbed his eyes and asked what was going on, and his colleagues said that someone had robbed their entire warehouse. Zhang Yi jumped up from this news. They immediately ran to the warehouse, and he, seeing that everything was empty, grabbed his head and asked what had happened here. Where could so many things have gone? His colleague approached him, handed him the phone, and regretfully said that it was the director calling. He answered the call, and the director exclaimed that he had just been informed that all the goods had disappeared from the warehouse. What on earth was going on there? He told him they didn't know what exactly happened yet, but during a break-in just 2 hours, all the goods simply disappeared. The director was indignant and exclaimed that this was simply impossible. He, a little idiot, decided to bite the hand that feeds him? He began to suspect him, which made MC nervous and asked the director not to talk like that. He knew he wasn't that kind of person. And how could he have carried off so many goods alone? He believed they couldn't figure this out on their own. They needed to contact the appropriate authorities. The director immediately calmed down and said he was right. He would report this to the CEO and let him handle it himself. After that, the call ended, and Zhang Yi informed his colleagues that the director said he would look into the matter and would send specialists to them, so they had nothing to fear. They should just cooperate with the investigation. They all breathed a sigh of relief and thanked him, and he said that it was okay that they all fell asleep. He was sure they were innocent. They all agreed with him. They really had nothing to be afraid of. Soon MC was called in for questioning. He obediently answered all the questions, and the policeman said that he was grateful to him for coming, but he had to remind him of something. If he remembered anything suspicious, he should definitely contact them, and that he should not leave the city. He told him that he wasn't going anywhere, after which he left the police station and saw news about a large warehouse robbery on a huge screen, after which he took out his phone and thought that there were only 2 days left. A snowflake fell on the screen. He looked at the sky, and all the people around him began to run home, saying that such nasty weather had arrived, and it was even snowing. This winter is so cold. Was it really that cold last year? He felt cold. He quickly went home and thought that in 2 days this world would finally cease to exist. And then that very day came, at 2 a.m. On December 12th, due to the aftermath of a stellar explosion, the temperature of the Earth's surface dropped sharply, bringing a devastating catastrophe to the planet. At that moment, Zhang Yi was sitting at home and watching everything slowly freeze over and thought that the time had come. He drank some water and took out his phone, checking his work chat. They were all admiring the snow, and Yukin even sent a photo of herself. MC thought that this was just the beginning. The snowfall would last at least 3 months, and the temperature would drop lower and lower. By then, they would no longer be so happy about the snow. Morning came. Some woman tried to leave her house, but the doors wouldn't open. and when she finally did, she saw that everything was covered in snow. But for some reason, the weather forecast didn't mention it. People in other apartments turned on all the heating and didn't know what to do next, since they didn't even have winter clothes. John Yi continued to sleep, but he was awakened by a phone call. It was Yukin. He asked why she was calling so early, and she smiled, saying that it was so cold outside today. He knew it would get cold, so he decided to stock up on supplies. He told her that he had briefly heard one of his friends talk about it, but he never thought the temperature would drop so much. She exclaimed that it was no wonder he bought so much. Why didn't he warn her? Because of him, she was freezing here. He chuckled and said that if she had nothing else to say, he was hanging up, and she worriedly asked him to wait, but it was too late. She began to nervously bite her nails and thought, has this guy completely lost his mind? She needed to think of something urgently. The protagonist placed the phone on the nightstand, then clutched his head and closed his eyes. He thought he'd miscalculated. He hadn't expected her to try to accuse him of anything. Then he got out of bed, stretched his body, and said, let's go. It's time for breakfast. He'll watch the news while he eats. After a while, he sat down on the couch and began eating. The news anchor said, last night, icy winds hit their planet, causing global temperature changes. In some places, the temperature dropped to -70 degrees. Meteorologists are trying to determine the cause of this cold snap. They should try to stay indoors unless absolutely necessary and keep warm by any means necessary. They should also not believe rumors about shortages and sharp price increases. All violators of the law will be punished according to the letter of the law. Then the protagonist put his fork down and said, no way, it's getting colder than last time. The next second, a notification came on his phone. He looked at the screen. Yuchin had texted John Yi, asking why he had just hung up. It was so snowy outside that she couldn't leave the house. Hadn't he bought groceries? Couldn't he lend her some? She would definitely return it when the snow stopped. And he thought, he wasn't so stupid and understood that this cold snap would directly affect prices in the stores. She didn't want to go out in this cold herself, so she decided to ask him for help. But he took a photo of his set table and thought, but in this world, she wouldn't get any help from him. She would pay in full in this life for all her mockery and for killing him, Yuchin. Meanwhile, she smiled, looked at her phone screen and said, there it is, and she knew he was definitely not starving. Then the MC attached a photo and captioned it. She should have told him earlier. He ate almost everything. She should see. He cooked such a steak today. And she said in surprise, premium Wagyu and French wine too. It costs at least 20 to 30,000 a bottle. It's strange that with his wealth he lives in some high-rise building. Then she wrote, great, she wouldn't say no to a steak and a glass of wine either. And he replied that in that case she should go to the supermarket and buy it herself. She started writing a reply. John Yi, and he dares to call himself a man? She's giving him the opportunity to show off. Then she frowned and thought, she can't get angry, she can't let him off the hook. Then the protagonist noticed the tablet for remote control of the building's monitoring system. He picked it up and, looking at the video that appeared, thought, looks like a pretty good show is brewing. At that moment, Aunt Lin stood in front of her neighbors and said that everyone needed to calm down. The snowfall would end in 2 or 3 days at most. They didn't need to go shopping for supplies. Their management company would help them survive this snowfall. Then the man clenched his fist and said, no one can say for sure when all this will end. How will they survive without food? The guy next to him added, exactly. They need to go out and stock up. He was sure that prices will only go up, but she blocked the way with her hands and protested. What are they doing? Are they trying to increase the general panic? Mass buying will lead to shortages and price increases, and no one will be able to afford it. If any of them are caught hoarding food, they should be sure that she will report it. At that moment, the main character approached the crowd and asked, Aunt Lin, does she know how long this will last? If this goes on any longer, who will be responsible for the residents starving to death? The man then looked at her and said, that's right. Who will help them when the supplies run out? The woman next to him added, will they feed them? She awkwardly held her hands out in front of her and told them not to worry. They would take care of everything. There would be no shortage of supplies. The blizzard would soon subside. She thought, damn, isn't he ashamed to say such a thing in front of everyone? Then she pointed her finger at the protagonist and said, and he, John Yi, should stop causing panic. He's breaking the law. The protagonist waved his hand and turned around, saying, she's already an old woman, but has the mind of a child. He walked to the elevator and, putting his hands in his pockets, added, they shouldn't worry. It's so cold outside that he won't go out even if they begged him. Goodbye. Aunt Lin watched him go and thought, this Zhang Yi is simply ignorant. I'll have to find a way to get even with him. A few days later, MC was sitting on the couch playing a game. Afterwards, he opened a bag of snacks and said, relationships with people are complicated. Games are much more enjoyable. Then he noticed a notification on his phone and said in surprise, who is texting at this time? Aunt Lin texted him, Zhang Yi, all the exits are blocked by snow. He should come down later and help clear the snow. He took a small bite of ice cream and asked, Did she specifically text him in the general chat? Was she trying to get revenge? Then he smiled and added, "The first floor is completely covered. Another month, and the snow will reach the third floor." Then he wrote, "Who wants to go outside in such cold? They will clear the snow when the snow stops." At that moment, an aunt and her grandson were warming themselves by the heater, and the rest of the neighbors wrote in the chat, "Yes, it's so cold outside. Even a couple of minutes will guarantee them frostbite. They mustn't forget where they live. They don't even have proper winter clothes. How can he walk?" And Aunt Lynn clenched her teeth in irritation and said, "If it weren't for this little idiot, none of them would have uttered a word." Then she wrote, "What is he talking about? Is he trying to turn everyone against her? Why doesn't a strong young man take the initiative and help the neighbors?" On behalf of the neighborhood committee, she orders him, John Yi, to go and shovel the snow. In these difficult times, they must unite. After the snow stops, their committee will definitely take up the cleanup. And he smiled, looking at his phone screen, and said, giving out orders hiding behind her official position. And the rest are just waiting for him to resort to insults, so they can bury their heads in the sand like cowardly ostriches. Today, he's going to have a real blast. With these words, he smirked, looking at his phone screen, and then began to write. Since it's for the common good, she should be the one to take responsibility. There are so many residents, so why did she only list a few names? Does she think they're so easy to control? For some reason, he doesn't see any rich people on the list. Is she afraid to say something to them? The others agreed. John Yi is right. He's his hero. Since they're all equal here, why should only the middle class have to clean up? On the 6th floor lives Chen Zhenghao, who has over 100 people under his command. And on the 2nd floor lives Xu Hao, a 4th-generation rich man with tons of connections in society. Then the protagonist wrote that since she's so worried about them, why doesn't she, Aunt Lin, ask these two to help them out? Then he thought, in his past life, Zhenghao was the one who broke down his door with an axe, and Xu Hao was the one who stabbed him first. All the neighbors, with rare exceptions, got a piece of the pie after his death. Then he poured a drink into a glass and said, they are both trash. However, he must see this through to the end. At this moment, Aunt Lin got up from the sofa and said indignantly, "Idiot!" He probably mentioned them so that he himself would not have to go down and do anything. If she gave in, then they would stop taking her seriously. At this moment, Xu Hao was lying on the sofa and looking at the screen of his phone, said, "Damn, who would want to freeze their buttocks on the street?" Then Auntie wrote, "The community is their common home. She hopes that everyone will do their bit to improve it." Along with this message, she tagged Zhenghao and Xu Hao. Noticing this, Zhenghao was surprised. "Huh?" he shouted indignantly. "It's a real snowstorm outside. Is she sick? She should go to the hospital to get her head treated." Hearing this, the auntie pulled the phone away from her ear, and Xu Hao smiled, bringing the phone to his mouth, and said, "Cleaning up snow is not his job. He doesn't need to go to work, so he prefers to spend time in bed." Then he lay down next to the girl and added, "Stupid dog. They pay her a salary, and she thinks she's a queen. It's just ridiculous. What does he care about poor people with nothing behind them?" Then he took a photo with his girlfriend and added, "Those who want to clean up snow should hurry up. They still have to go to work to earn money, and once they're done, he'll go somewhere to have fun." He attached the photo and voice message to the chat, and Aunt Lin shouted indignantly, "This is all his fault. It's all Zhang Yi's fault. Because of him, she had a fight with those two." Meanwhile, the protagonist was busy cooking. Aunt Lin angrily shouted at him into the phone, "Zhang Yi, is he trying to make her life difficult? Will he calm down if he doesn't have to shovel snow? Will he prefer to stay trapped in the snow?" And then he put the treat on the table and replied, "Stop beating around the bush. There's no point in bullying weaklings. Isn't the whole point of her existence to get yelled at? He'll tell you right away. He's not one to be intimidated. Stop yapping if you value your life." She sank onto the couch and screamed, "Idiot, you've completely lost your mind. She won't tolerate this. She'll give him more." After a while, there was a loud knock on the protagonist's door, and Zhenghao approached and shouted, "Zhang Yi, you idiot. He needs to let him in right now. Wasn't he just being brave in the chat? They should discuss this while he kills him." At that moment, the MC approached the door and opened the special window. Zhenghao continued to scream, "He's going to just blow this door off its hinges. He can't keep him waiting." He kicked the door, and the protagonist aimed his gun at the open window, thinking that they would see who had the last word. Then he took aim and thought, "No, there's no point in killing him right away. Isn't it too boring to just let him die?" He aimed at his leg. Meanwhile, Zhenghao took out a bat and, enraged, shouted, "Idiot, stop hiding. He needs to come out. They can talk like men." But the next second, an arrow pierced his leg. He fell to the ground, clutching his wounded leg and screaming in pain. The protagonist, looking through the peephole, thought, "Great job, right on target." He slung the crossbow over his shoulder and said, "The temperature is pretty low. With a penetrating wound, he clearly won't be having any fun anytime soon." Meanwhile, Zhenghao rose and, leaning his hand on the bat, walked down the corridor. MC thought that infection was also inevitable, with no emergency services and a shortage of medicine. He died a miserable death from the cold and pain, At that moment, Zheng Hao walked into the elevator and, leaning on the handle, said, "This kid was serious. He wanted to kill him." Arriving at the right floor, he looked at his phone screen and added, "He must find someone who can provide first aid. His leg will simply stop working in half an hour if this continues." A voice came from his phone. "The number he dialed is not answering, please." He said, "Damn, the ambulance will definitely not be able to come in this weather." Then he entered the apartment and, opening the shelf of the kitchen cabinet, said, "It's too late. We must try to save the leg." After that, he settled down on the sofa and, lifting his leg, put scissors to the arrow. He grabbed it with tweezers and said, "Maybe it's a good thing the leg is frozen. Anesthesia will not be needed." The next second, he sharply yanked the arrow, removing it from the leg. He threw it to the floor and then, wiping sweat from his face, said, "Zhang Yi, he must kill him. He simply must." After that, he wrote in the chat, "Zhang Yi, he must be careful not to die prematurely. He'll deal with him himself." And he replied, "What? If he bothers him again, he'll lose more than just a leg." The others thought in surprise. Zhang Yi fought back? Looks like he even wounded him. Then one of his subordinates answered Zheng Hao's call and asked, "Boss, what happened?" And he clenched his teeth in irritation and said, "Everyone report to him immediately. He must gather all the guys. They need to kill him." Sometime later, a gang of bandits came to his apartment, and one of them slung a weapon over his shoulder and said that they would go to him immediately. They must avenge their boss. And Zheng Hao pointed his finger at him and shouted, "Stop talking." Because of him, he almost lost a leg. He lives in apartment number 2401. We need to attack unexpectedly. They will kill this idiot. Sometime later, the guys reached the protagonist's apartment, and one of them shouted, "He must open the door. For shooting their boss, he will die today." The others continued, "Today is his last day. He must go out and accept death." Then the man slammed a huge weapon on the door and shouted, "The snowstorm blocked all the roads, so they spent a lot of effort to get here. He can't escape." Then the man was frightened, noticing the blade of the weapon flying past his head. Then the men said, "This door is made of a solid piece of metal. How can it be broken? How many enemies does he have for him to install a door like that?" The protagonist at that moment was watching everything happening from the tablet screen. He sighed loudly and said, "He died. He'll have to start over. What? No strength." Then one of the bandits looked at the camera and shouted, "What is he hiding there for? Like a pathetic turtle. He has to come out." And then the protagonist connected the hose to the kitchen faucet and said, "Well, he'll help them out a little." He stuck a hose out the window, and one of the men said, "He thinks he can escape death a second time." Before he could finish speaking, a stream of water poured down on them, and the bandits began to freeze. They screamed, "It's so cold." Many of them remained lying on the floor, and the half-dead tried to leave the protagonist's apartment and said that they were freezing. They asked for help. The man extended his hand forward and said, "He must wait for him. He can't move." And the MC himself, continuing to watch what was happening, sat down on the sofa and, putting his hands behind his head, thought that he wanted to teach them a lesson with a crossbow. But this is even better. After some time, Zheng Hao looked at his frozen subordinates and asked, "Where is that boy? Did they deal with him or what? Someone. They need to explain to him what happened." He threw down a huge towel. And then one of his subordinates said, "Zhang Yi is so vile. His door is very thick. They tried for a long time to break it down, but they only managed to scratch it a little. And he also poured water on them. It's just a nightmare." Zheng Hao frowned and thought the front door really did seem pretty thick to him. But after that, he flexed his fists and shouted, "No big deal." He was sure he couldn't sit behind this door for the rest of his days. They would watch him and kill him as soon as he showed his nose. The man replied, "He's right. As soon as he comes out, they would cut him to pieces." Meanwhile, people outside were clearing snow, and one of the neighbors said, "My God, no matter how hard they try, they don't have enough workers." The man added, "The snow by the door is cleared, but they can't dig all the way to the supermarket." Then Uncle Yu sighed loudly and said, "That's right. The snow is falling faster than they can clear it. They can't manage without a snowblower. That's it. They have to go back. There's no point in freezing." At that moment, the protagonist looked out from the balcony and, looking at them, thought, "Are they coming back?" He returned to the apartment, threw the trash in the trash can, and thought, "It seems they don't fully understand that humans cannot compete with natural disasters of this scale." After a while, he turned on the news again, and the reporter said, "They are live again. They will listen to what the government has to say about the current cataclysm." According to the official report, due to poor prevention of disasters of this type, about tens of millions of people have died so far, and about 200 million have been affected. Please, they must remain calm and wait for the official news. He thought, common sense cannot estimate the scale of this catastrophe. The human mind simply does not comprehend such a scale of destruction. After that, Aunt Lin wrote in the chat, "Has everyone heard the news? Their country is capable of coping with this disaster. They should not worry. It will be over soon. We must help each other when necessary. This storm will soon pass, so there's no point in stocking up." And then Yukshin wrote to the protagonist and asked if he was okay. He wondered if she was worried about him. He was afraid she didn't care whether he was alive or dead. Then he replied that he was fine, and she wrote back, "Great. Could he lend her some groceries?" She was out of them, and he had done a lot of shopping. She'll definitely treat him to dinner later. He wondered if she ran out of supplies quickly. Hadn't they bought all sorts of junk last time? Hadn't she managed to eat everything in 2 days? After that, he took a photo of his table and asked if she wanted to have dinner together. Unfortunately, he'd already eaten. She should see. And at that moment, Yukon said irritably, this Jiangyi had planned everything from the beginning. He was just protecting himself. Mio sat next to her and looking at her phone screen, said, even if he was 3 times rich, she hoped he died single. Then she wrote to the protagonist, he upset her. The idiot. Does he even understand how serious this is? And he smiled and thought, so be it. He wrote, what does it matter to him? Her mood is constantly changing. Mio replied, horror. How long will this blizzard last? Aren't he ashamed to send her such photos when she's dying of hunger here? If he can't do such a trivial thing, then she thinks he's not serious about her. The protagonist took a sip of his drink and said, green tea with lotus is so delicious. And in response, he wrote, yeah. Mio indignantly shouted, what the hell is an yeah? What does he mean? After that, she called Yuchin and told her to listen. This Jiangyi is just an idiot. She asked him to give them some food, but he simply ignored her request. She asked, who is this Jiangyi? Do they know each other? She mustn't remind her of him anymore. Then, Mio moved closer and asked, does she have any other options besides him? They need to find someone who can help them now. Yukon sighed loudly. After that, she called Peng and said she wanted to ask him for something. After a while, Mio opened the door slightly, and Peng stood there, holding a bag and joyfully said, he brought everything. He chose the best and most expensive items from among the discounted goods. Then Mio closed the door behind him, and Yukon thought, does he really love her that much? I'll have to check. 3 days later, the protagonist bit into a chicken leg and said, well, the fun is about to begin. The next second, screams came from the house. Where did the electricity go? What should we do? The neighbors began to emerge from their apartments, wrapped in warm blankets. The woman looked at the others and asked, do they have no electricity either? Lemay, holding a baby, replied, no, and no water either. She can't even cook food for her child. The man then wiped his glasses and said, it's so cold, it'll be really bad without heating. What should they do now? The others added, why hasn't anyone from the management company come? If this continues, they'll just freeze. Without a heater, the temperature will quickly drop to minus 30 degrees. Their families have no supplies, and the snow will make it impossible to go to the store. What should they do? The protagonist took a toothpick and said, the management company can't help here. He went to the generator, turned it on, and said he'd try. The next second, the only window in his house lit up with a bright light. Meanwhile, Aunt Lin wrapped herself and her grandson in a blanket and said, it can't be. Everything was fine a few days ago. Why? In the group chat, they wrote that a similar blizzard happened many years ago, and it led to an ice age and the extinction of all life. They have over 1 billion people, and it's impossible to take care of everyone. Several major cities have already fallen. To survive, they must rely only on themselves and stock up on supplies and resources for heating. Auntie said, we need to stock up. We need to do this before panic sets in. Her grandson looked at her and asked, Grandma, why is it so cold outside? When are the parents coming? She replied, Xiaohu, everything is fine. They will be back soon. She thought she had to protect them both and help them survive. She wrote in the neighbor's chat, the problem is temporary. The water problem will be fixed soon. Repairs are already underway. They ask everyone to actively cooperate with the management company, otherwise they will be handed over to the police. Meanwhile, Mio looked at Yuchin and asked, is it that serious? What's going on outside? Xu Hao threw the phone down and said, old fool, she only gives orders. One of his frozen subordinates said, they can't get out of here. There are no fever reducers. What should they do? He shouted, they must remain silent. The problem is that they are useless trash. At this moment, the protagonist ended the game, smiled, and stretched. He looked at his phone screen and saw a message from Aunt Lin. The snowstorm had a huge impact on everyone's lives. According to official sources, it will be over soon. To cope with the situation, they will collect things from each apartment and divide them equally. MC said, just like last time. He was surprised to see private messages from Auntie, which he hadn't even had time to read. Was she following him? She wrote that Jiang Yi works in a warehouse and must have plenty of supplies. He irritably said that in his past life, Auntie also took the initiative to collect supplies, and he had to give some of it away. This got him into trouble. She wrote, everyone is in a difficult situation. They need to help. He shouldn't worry. When it's over, he will definitely be compensated for everything, and everyone is counting on him. He turned on the recording and said that they should share with him once they had collected the supplies. He thought that they were one of the reasons for his death in his past life, and he would not forget that. And Aunt Lin remarked indignantly, he works in the warehouse, which means he can buy goods at a discount, and there are a lot of unnecessary things at home. She stroked her grandson's head and thought, she needs to calm down. She must not give up. If she thinks of something, the supplies will last for another week. Then she said, Zhang Yi, everyone knows that he is in charge of the warehouse. Does he need food? This is an order from the organization. He cannot disobey. If he contributes, the organization will remember it. He replied, she should listen, if it were possible. But he is not lying. There is little food. Why doesn't she pass him a few packages of noodles? Aunt Lin shouted indignantly. What is wrong with him? She represents the interests of the organization. If he refuses to hand over the materials, it means he is going against the organization. She will get him yet. He asked irritably. On behalf of the organization? She's just an employee of the district committee, not a big shot. Maybe she can figure this out? He'll be waiting for her at home. Auntie looked at her phone, then hung up and shouted, "Damn it, is there any way to influence him? She's a leader too, after all." Then she thought, maybe she should sick people on him, but then everyone will understand that it's okay to refuse to give out supplies. There needs to be another way. After a while, the protagonist looked at the cameras and said, "She has a head on her shoulders." He started eating noodles and thought, the supplies usually last 3 to 5 days, but in the cold they go through faster. Besides, they fell for the scam themselves. It's not his fault. The outside world has plunged into chaos. Only with supplies can one survive. Otherwise, all one can do is wait for death. In the neighbors' chat, they wrote, "Aunt Lynn, how about a unified supply distribution? Their family ate everything." Auntie said, "Idiots. It will all be hers." Could she really give away the supplies she had worked so hard to collect? Then her grandson pointed to the ringing phone, and she took it and said, "Do those idiots want anything else?" She was surprised. "Zhenghao, what does he want?" He said, "Hello, Aunt Lin." She had thought of it well. She got her hands on all the supplies. She replied that her job was to distribute food. He said, "Great. Their family is short of supplies. Send them as soon as possible." She replied, "We need time for approval. Besides, not all the materials are there yet. She can't do that right away." He shouted, "Old woman, what shamelessness." She went and stuffed her pockets with supplies. She had to give away the food. Otherwise he would come with a dozen men and take everything. After some time, a group of people gathered at her door, and she held out her hands in front of them and told them to stay back. "This is burglary of private property." Then Zhenghao slapped her across the cheek and told her to shut up. She'd cheated the tenants with their food deliveries and deserved her comeuppance. The protagonist, meanwhile, was watching the action on the security cameras and, taking a bite of his sausage, let out a small laugh. He exclaimed, "Now that dog's got what she deserved." Then he snapped his fingers and asked, should he post this in the general chat so all the neighbors could enjoy it? He thought the reaction would be just right. Meanwhile, Zhenghao pointed and ordered his subordinates to find all the food in the building. They would take it as compensation for the tenants' hard work. Then Aunt Lin grabbed his leg and told them not to take everything. It was their supplies. If they took it all, how would she and her grandson survive? He looked at her and said indignantly, "Hey, old woman, she needs to get her hands off." And she started crying and told him to leave some. He had to help them. But Zhenghao waved her off and, adding a kick, shouted at her to get lost. Then Aunt Lin fell to the floor, and Xiaohu watched in fear. He grabbed a knife and, raising it, ran to the attack. He shouted, "Idiots, they have to go." He plunged the knife into the buttock of one of the men carrying boxes, and he clenched his fist and, turning around, shouted indignantly, "Did he want to die? Now he'll give him that." He kicked the boy sharply, throwing him onto the sofa. The others laughed and said, "No wonder he spent so much time training his legs." And he replied, "He threw him away like a baby rabbit." Awesome. Then he threw the knife behind his back and asked, "Isn't that wonderful? He definitely needs to document this." Then Aunt Lin reached for her grandson and said, "Her boy." And after that, Zhenghao spat and said, "Enough. Things are more important now." He slung the bat over his shoulder, headed for the exit, and added, "This is her payment for lying." He just gave her what she deserved. Sometime later, the protagonist posted a video in the group chat, and the others wrote, "Liar. She deserved it. This guy is strong. He must have been practicing a lot. He's so powerful." Then the MC looked at his phone screen and said, "Apparently, they don't fully understand the essence of everything that's happening." In the chat, they wrote, "If it weren't for Brother Zhenghao, they would have ended up with nothing. Brother Zhenghao, he needs to be careful. This old woman is completely shameless. He should report her to the police." And the protagonist said, "They don't understand that the next one they barge into could be any of them." Then he shrugged and added, "But fortunately, he doesn't care." After that, he noticed a new notification from Aunt Lin. She wrote, "Does anyone have any hemostatic medicine or antibiotics? Her grandson is injured. Dr. Zhou urgently needs medicine for the operation." And the protagonist thought, "Dr. Zhou? She will operate on Xiaohu." Then Zhou wrote that she temporarily stopped the bleeding, but it will not help for long. If anyone has extra medicine, please they should bring it. MC thought, she is a doctor from Tianhai First Hospital. In her past life, she treated many people, was one of a few who was kind to him. Aunt Lin wrote, "Her baby needs medicine that will save his life. Please, they must help." And the others wrote, "What suddenly need help? Her grandson should be saved by a beautiful doctor. What does this have to do with them? Didn't she appropriate their supplies? They should forget about unnecessary morals." Her grandson received retribution. Then the protagonist shook his head and said, "The guy who usually doesn't write anything actually took it upon himself to speak out in the general chat to save Xiaohu. He's a real sweetheart. So what if they save that bastard? The blizzard will last a long time anyway, and it won't do any good." Then the guy went to the window and said, "What should we do? There's so much snow that the first floor is practically completely covered." His girlfriend clutched her head and screamed, "The news says this is the first such incident in thousands of years. How will it all end?" The snowstorm started last week and covered the entire world. In some places, temperatures reached over 100 degrees below zero. The snowfall isn't abating, it's only getting worse. The residents of the buried cities who weren't evacuated in time are left there, in the snow, forever. After a while, Aunt Lin wrote, "They must hand over all their supplies. Failure to do so is a gross violation of discipline. They will be punished. They must hand over the supplies. They want to die without their help? Xiaohu hasn't eaten for a long time. Please, they have to save him. He's just a child. Does anyone have food? He and the child haven't eaten for 2 days. She's willing to pay. The girl wrote that she has a few packs of instant noodles. She can sell them to her for 1,000 yuan per pack. Then Shuhao replied, he'll give 2,000 per pack. He'll buy everything she has. At that moment, the protagonist bit off a chicken leg and asked, what? They've started a business here. The guy, looking at the chat, wrote 2,000 for a pack of noodles. The girl wrote, hey, if you don't need it, it will be more expensive later. The man wrote, stop joking. It's not the end of the world, right? And the woman wrote, oh my god, they're exaggerating. Winter just came a little early this year. This isn't a zombie apocalypse, right? And the protagonist asked, zombie apocalypse? They're too naive to compare such nonsense with the disaster that's happening now. Then Shuhao said, she shouldn't worry about it. He's rich, so he can spend all the money, right? If she's ready to sell, she should write him a private message. They'll come to an agreement. Then he looked out the window and thought, the city's transportation and public facilities are paralyzed. Unfortunately, they won't be taking this money with them to the next world. Then he smiled, looking at the notification, and the woman wrote in the chat, how can he do this? They have nothing to eat. Buying food is their salvation. He replied, he didn't mean to rob her. He simply offered her a better offer. Who to sell to is their choice, isn't it? And she, holding the baby in her arms, replied, please, they must help them. The daughter is only 9 months old. She has nothing to eat, so there is no milk for her. They're both going to starve to death. The MC looked at the chat and thought, a single mother with a baby asking for help. If she opens up to someone, she'll immediately become a victim. But it's still weird. In her past life, she fought for her child to the bitter end too. She's definitely not that simple. 10 days later, the protagonist was working out, and then, hearing a notification, he thought by his calculations, they should have run out of supplies by now. Could this couple really still be alive? Then he answered the call and asked, why are you video calling? To show off your weight loss? He's congratulating you. And Yuchen thought, hasn't he run out of food yet? Mio also glanced at the screen and shouted, Zhang Yi, where did he get so much food? Did he go out shopping? Yuchen asked, is he warm? Are those beads of sweat on his forehead? He replied, he has a lot of fast food. He's too lazy to cook regular meals, so he doesn't exercise much and has lost a lot of weight. And he has a fireplace in his house. It's a wonderful thing. Very warm. Yuchen made a sweet face and said, he's amazing. He's well prepared. She admires him. Can she come over for a visit? We haven't seen each other for so long. She missed him. She thought she needed to butter him up a little. He was like a long-term meal ticket. And the protagonist looked at his phone screen with disgust and said, on such a cold day, she should stay home. He thought, disgusting. He must be mentally ill to run after her for 2 years. Then he sat down on the sofa and added, although he's not sure he understands how cold it is there. Well, judging by their appearance, the temperature has dropped a lot. And then Yukin frowned and was indignant. Zhang Yi, they are frozen. They are scared and have nothing to eat. If he is not going to help, then he shouldn't at least mock. In response, he asked, really? Didn't her friend come to her aid? They will talk when she finds another fool who is ready to do anything for her. And she screamed, Zhang Yi, he should shut his mouth. And he shrugged and asked, is he lying? Why is she so nervous? They are not related. Why on earth would he help her? She screamed, he is an idiot. Then the MC hung up, and Yuchen threw the phone on the bed and said indignantly, this idiot has the nerve to talk to her like that. Then Mio looked at her and said, their problem is that they didn't see through him right away. Now they won't see his things. Then she opened his profile or added, now he's even cooler than that moneybags. That guy won't be able to flaunt his wealth anymore. What kind of prophet is he now? And the next second, Yukin swung her fist at her and screamed, oh, she's an idiot. She pushed her onto the bed. Meanwhile, the protagonist started eating. He started opening a bottle of drink while sitting in front of the TV, where the reporter said, the city administration officially issued an order that electricity will be supplied daily from 1 to 2. The use of large electrical appliances is prohibited. Only kettles, phones, and other small items can be turned on. Currently, large power plants have suspended operations, causing a power shortage. The administration is hoping for citizen awareness. After this, the protagonist took a sip of his drink, then pointed to the tablet and said, the scale of the disaster has become so serious that even the government can no longer hide it. Then he opened the tablet, and in the group chat they were writing, have they seen the news? The internet rumors about a global power outage turned out to be true. And what should they do now? The water pipes are probably frozen by now. He has some noodles left. Does anyone need them? 5,000 a pack. Then the protagonist sighed loudly, and putting his hand to his face, thought, these idiots are standing on the brink of the end of the world and are still trying to exchange vital resources for money that will soon be useless. They need to go on living. They can't lose hope. Even if they are afraid, they must grit their teeth and resist. Meanwhile, Aunt Lin approached her grandson and calling him, told him not to fall asleep. How could she explain everything to his parents? And Zheng Hao, examining the gun, said, Dr. Kier is so kind. Thanks to her, he was able to save his leg. She was treating his wound and said, after she treated everything, he should give her some of the supplies, as they agreed. Meanwhile, Shu Hao said, this will last for some time. Then Mio, folding her arms across her chest, looked at Yuxin with irritation and asked, What is she going to do? There is a blizzard that no one knows when it will end. Who can she rely on except that idiot Zhang Yi? And she noted that she was right. They just need to break through to him. Then she looked at the phone screen and added, they can't tell everyone about this, but the two of them are not enough. After some time, Peng came to the threshold of Yuchen's apartment and she said, this is just bullying. Zhang Yi deliberately humiliated her. He treats her like this because he has food, and Peng shouted in surprise. What? Zhang Yi, this idiot, since he dared to treat her like this, he should teach him a lesson. He flexed the knuckles of his fist. Then Yuchen approached him and, giving him a loving look, said, Peng, we need to find a way to get into his apartment. After that, they can move in there. What does he think? She took his hand and then they walked into the corridor, and he replied, okay. She shouldn't worry. He will arrange it. She added, but he must be careful. Zhang Yi is a selfish and shameless person. He will try to fight back. They need to find a weapon and strike first. Neo walked behind them and added, they will simply beat him to death and that's it. After some time, they armed themselves and stood outside the protagonist's apartment. Peng knocked on the door and asked, Zhang Yi, is he home? It's Peng. At that moment, the protagonist looked at the tablet screen and was surprised. Peng, what does he want? He didn't think he had good intentions. Then he noticed the weapons in the guest's hands and frowning thought, are they seriously trying to kill him? After that, he went to the faucet in the kitchen and shouts were heard behind the door. Zhang Yi, it's him, Peng. He's out of food. He thinks they should help each other. They're colleagues. Then the protagonist turned around and looking at the bucket, thought, seriously, how bad is it? He thinks he can help with something. And Peng, smiling, looked at the knife behind his back and replied, not exactly fatal, but he's very hungry. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bothered him. He has to open the door quickly. Then the protagonist ran a hose from the bucket to the window in the door and said, okay, he's coming. The others thought, he's coming. The next second, they were splashed with dirty water, and Mio screamed, what the hell is this? Yuchen added, it's slop. And then Peng started knocking on the door even more furiously and shouted, Zhang Yi, he has to come out. He'll kill him. Then the MC laughed and asked, didn't he say he was hungry? So he shared with them. They should be grateful. And he thought, how did he know? Then he swung a knife and shouted at him to just wait. He's going to come in and kill him. The next second, he grabbed the door handle, but a needle pierced his hand, and he fell to the floor, writhing in pain. At that moment, the MC looked at the tablet screen and said, he sees that his life is not precious. He put his hands behind his head and added, he might never leave here, so he'll just watch what happens to them. After a while, the protagonist's eyes suddenly opened, lying on his bed. He sat up and asked in surprise, gunshots? He reached for his tablet and thought, does one of the neighbors have a gun? Is it that guy? Is he not dead yet? Then he looked at the man who was moving boxes and said, after the water was turned off, the only way to get water was to collect snow and bring it inside to melt. Apparently, they didn't waste any time. Then he lay back in bed and, putting the tablet on the nightstand, added, the residents on the third floor are doomed. They have no supplies, no way to defend themselves. Meanwhile, the man approached Zheng Hao and asked what he plans to do next, and he looked at the phone screen and told him to wait. First, we need to deal with this bunch of idiots. Then he wrote in the chat, the snowstorm has lasted too long. None of them counted on this. They can only rely on themselves. From now on, he, Zheng Hao, takes responsibility for House 25. It will be the same in the future. He will arrange a good life for them. No one can stand against him. Along with these messages, he attached a photo of himself with a gun, and then several bodies. At this moment, the protagonist was brushing his teeth and looking at the chat said, this guy is good. No wonder he lives well, even in these conditions. In any case, the number of bullets and people is limited. He still can't shoot them all. He'll just wait until he buries himself. Then he frowned and asked, a new chat? The new chat was called Resistance to Zheng Hao's Actions. People in the chat wrote, he is a real devil. He has already robbed 3 apartments. A young couple lived in apartment 301. They resisted and were killed by him. The guys from the 301st and 401st are so scared that they willingly gave up all their supplies. They must unite and fight back. But he has a gun. So what? How many bullets does he have in his gun? He can't shoot them all anyway. Well, when do they start? The MC wiped his mouth with a towel and asked, an attempt at resistance? Then someone wrote in the chat, dealing with him will be easy peasy, but he's not alone. We'll have to deal with his gang too. True, recklessness is for fools. They must be smarter to win. Then the protagonist smiled and said, talking about wisdom, just to avoid getting caught in a hail of bullets. Then someone else wrote, they can't let things develop like this, otherwise he'll shoot them all. Won't he die if they take his supplies? Uncle Yu wrote, he's ready to take the initiative, lead the people to deal with this idiot. And they wrote back, he supports him. Does he need a weapon? He can give up his kitchen knife. Uncle, this Zheng Hao is a cripple. We just need to sneak up on him. He wrote, he can't go up against Zheng Hao and his guys by himself. He needs at least a dozen young guys. And others wrote, no, Aunt Lin has already robbed them. Who knows? Maybe he's the same. Then a girl wrote, she took their vital supplies. If he leads the youth, what will the old people, women, and children do? The debate in the chat continued. If they don't plan to resist, will they just wait for him to get to them? It's only a matter of time. He's right. Who knows? Maybe Uncle Yu will turn out to be the same scoundrel? How could they open up to a potential enemy? Those who are unwilling to participate are pathetic cowards. Whom did he call a coward? And if they are all killed, What will happen to the women, old people, and children? That idiot won't last that long anyway. Meanwhile, the protagonist was busy cooking, sighed loudly, holding the phone in his hand and shaking his head, said that he didn't expect anything else. Afterwards, he poured the finished dish into a plate and sitting down at the table, added, "They keep shifting blame. Most of these people deserve to die." Then he tasted it and cried out, "Ouch, it's hot." Meanwhile, Zheng Hao holding the gun, he looked at his subordinates who were dragging the body and asked, "Is that all they found? They should hurry." And then one of the guys asked, "Brother Zheng Hao, do you even care? The others probably have something else lying around. Why don't they get a snack?" And he put the barrel of a gun to his head and was indignant. "Stop talking! Does he want to be like those hungry, sick rats hiding in their apartments?" And he threw the body on the floor and answered, "No, don't. He's right. They have to do everything to make the most of the situation." And then Zheng Hao added, "He's glad they understand that their painstaking efforts are not in vain." Then he followed his subordinates and thought, if he didn't have a gun in his hand, who knows if they would obey? Well, never mind. Let them walk on a leash for now. And at that moment, the MC said, "This guy is so ruthless. He left the bodies there, so that if anything happened, he could use them as rations for a rainy day." Then he stretched out his entire body and added, "If he touches him, he will simply kill him." The next day they were writing in the chat, "Quickly, help him. He lives under Zheng Hao. They are breaking down his door. Someone help. Don't some of them used to serve? These guys are so cruel. They need to unite." Meanwhile, Liu Tian leaned on the sofa that she used to prop the door open, and a scream came from the hallway. She has to open it. It's her turn. When the door finally opened, she sank to the floor in fear and screamed, "No, please! She's begging for mercy. She will give up all the food she has. They have to let her go." But then they grabbed her by the legs and dragged her into the hallway. With tears in her eyes, she stretched out her hand forward and begged for help. Her broken phone had a chat open, with people writing, "Serves her right. She deserves it. Good thing she's first. Great, they've bought themselves some time." At that moment, Yukin looked at her phone screen and said, "No, they have to find a way. This can't go on. If they attack women first, they'll find them sooner or later." Mio looked at her and asked, "What can they do? If they can't get to Zhang Yi, they'll end up like Liu Tian." Yukin bit her thumbnail nervously and said, "They need to inform trustworthy people that Zhang Yi has supplies, and they can try to break into his apartment together." Then a notification came on the protagonist's phone. He was being invited to join a self-help group chat. Yuchen wrote in that chat, "Zhang Yi, it's too dangerous outside. They'll catch everyone sooner or later. They need to band together. His apartment has a balcony and a good door. She hopes he'll join them." The protagonist smiled at this point and said, "So she's already told them everything. Good move." But she didn't mention who injured Zheng Gao. After that, he started recording a voice message and said, "No need, thanks. He's comfortable alone. If he needs a roommate, he will let her know." He thought, victory is his. She didn't think this would actually work, did she? They wrote back, "Zhang Yi, their lives are in danger now. How can he be so cruel? Only together will they survive. The balcony will be convenient for collecting snow for drinking water. They will help each other." She admits, they need him. He just needs to think about it. If he shelters them, he will save many lives. Can he watch this idiot kill them? They have been friends and neighbors for so many years. The MC replied, "At a time like this, survival depends on everyone's abilities. She is not worth his effort, so why should he?" After that, he left the chat, and the people gathered in the apartment sat on the couch, indignant. Yuchen looked at her phone screen and shouted, "How shameless he is. They all know each other. How can he do this?" And Kiri looked at her and said, "She said she would do anything to ensure their survival. She even planned to kill him and live in his apartment. But what to do with his intransigence?" After that, the guy adjusted his glasses and said, "Stop being nice to him. He's the only one in the apartment. They'll just get ready and attack him." The guy added, "They'll just do it. A lone wolf like him isn't worthy of living in this building." Then he covered his mouth with his fist and added, "He used to work for a locksmith company, so he's familiar with such things. He can open all kinds of locks on the market." Hearing this, Yukin joyfully shouted, "Excellent. If they can open the door, they'll see if he can resist." After a while, they all gathered outside the protagonist's apartment, and Yukin, holding an umbrella in front of her, thought, the most he can do is spray them with water. Wait, they're close. Zhang Yi. At that moment, the guy started picking the lock, and the protagonist looked at the tablet screen and asked, "Are they trying to break into the door?" He thought, this door has the security level of a bank vault. Do they think he spent so much money for them to open it so easily? Then he opened the house's security control system and turned on the high voltage flow. The next second, the guy screamed in pain and pulses of energy flew in all directions. He started asking for help, and the others looked at him in fear. Yukin screamed in fear, "Ow!" And then the guy pointed his finger forward and shouted, "Zhang Yi, you damn idiot, come out!" Kiri added, "They wanted to come here to discuss everything peacefully. How can he do this? Isn't he going to explain anything?" And the protagonist asked, "Are they still pretending? If they had broken down the door, wouldn't they have killed him?" With these words, he prepared his crossbow and, taking aim, added, "This is his house, so it is he who decides who lives and who dies." After that, he fired, and right in front of his door stood a guy. An arrow pierced his arm, and the others grabbed him and, leading him aside, said, "They must run. He is really going to kill them. Now is not the time to think about him. They need to retreat." Several more arrows flew out of the protagonist's door and pierced the bodies of the uninvited guests. Mio stepped forward and said, "Wait, they shouldn't leave her. She must wait for them welcome, Miss Kiri. After some time, everyone reached the apartment, and Kiri, looking at the wound, asked, "Are those rusty arrows?" The guy clenched his fist and said, "This treacherous bastard uses rusty arrows on purpose." And the guy next to him added, "Without antibiotics, death from infection is guaranteed." The guy grabbed his shoulder and screamed, "No! How could this happen?" And the next second, Kiri slapped Yukin on the cheek and screamed, "Idiot! This is all her fault. Didn't she say it was just a door? Where did he get a crossbow?" She knew. She just didn't say, and she clutched the bruised area and replied with tears in her eyes. She didn't know either. The last time they were with him, there was no crossbow. Then Peng stood in front of her and told her to stop. He could confirm that she really didn't know anything. And the guy added, "Someone needs to take care of them. They're injured." Kiri gritted her teeth and said, "There's no help." She looked at her phone screen and added, "The injury is serious. We need to ask for Dr. Kier." After a while, the doctor got to work and Kiri said, "Dr. Kier, they're counting on her." And she was surprised. "Arrows again?" Kiri asked. "Again? Has anyone been shot before?" She replied that it wasn't so. It was one of her patients at the hospital. The wound was too deep. Without professional equipment, she couldn't be 100% sure. She couldn't simply pull out the arrow. It would lead to infection. Without medical treatment, without antibiotics, she was afraid. Before she could finish speaking, Kiri sank to her knees and clutching her head said, "This Johnny is so cruel. He must have done it on purpose. How can he be so serious? They have to get rid of him." And the doctor thought, "Johnny? He lives here?" She had seen a similar injury before, so it was his doing. Then she packed her bag and said, "Well, removing the arrows without medicine is dangerous. She hopes they understand." Yuchin asked, "Medicine?" Johnny does have medicine. A month ago, she saw with her own eyes how they brought him a bunch of medicine. After that, she said thoughtfully, "About a month ago, Johnny changed a lot. He started frantically packing things from all over the house. Delivery trucks arrived almost daily, and Johnny even received medicine from the pharmacy." The doctor said, "Antibiotics are not that rare." She thinks he knew in advance what kind of situation they would be in. He must still have a lot of necessary things in stock. The guy said, "Then we just need to find Zhang Yi. Let him help." And the guy behind him said, "He will die soon. They must think of something." And Kiri said thoughtfully, "Yes, he drove them away. How to make him help?" Yuchin said they wouldn't harm him. They'd even leave him their share of the supplies. He just doesn't know what kindness is. They'll set an example. There's nothing to be afraid of. Then Kiri pointed a finger at her and said, "Well, since it's her suggestion, she'll entrust this matter to her. Besides, she'd already spoken with Jiang Yi, so go ahead." The others added, "Yes, if it weren't for her, they would be safe and sound." Peng looked at Yukin and said he was being unfair to her. They could only live safely if everyone tried. She replied, "In that case, she'll try. Dr. Kier, she thinks we should help them pull out the arrows first." After a while, the doctor set to work, and the boy cried out in pain. After that, Yuqin called the protagonist, and he asked, "Hello, what's the matter?" She said, "Zhang Yi, Liu Tian is dead, and Peng and the others were shot. They are on the brink of life and death." He replied, "Well, they died, so they died. They will all die someday." She asked, "Do you think they will be able to survive this snowstorm?" And he looked at the meat and, starting to cut it, thought, the snowfall blocked the entrance to the city. It was like an island. Everyone is already running out of supplies, aren't they? Even if they don't die of cold, they won't last long without food. And Yuqin, wiping away tears, said, "Zhang Yi, she knows she was wrong, and she does not absolve herself of blame. She will try to make things right. Will he be able to forgive her? Peng and the others have suffered greatly. If they do not receive timely help, they will die. Was he stocked up on medicines?" She asks him to lend them a couple. She promises that she will never bother him again. In the next second, Kiri snatched the phone from her hands and shouted, "Zhang Yi, right now, everyone is in a dangerous situation, and that scoundrel Zheng Hao only does harm to them. He must act like a man. He must cast aside his callousness and help them. Perhaps in the future, they too will be of use to him." He asked, "Callousness?" Well, she must guess why he shot them with rusty arrows. He wanted to see them writhe in pain. He anticipated their death. The body of one of their accomplices was still in front of his window. She still thought he would help them. They would still be enveloped in the feeling of influence anyway, wouldn't they? And she shouted, "They are not like that." He retorted, "Enough already. There is no point." Well, come to think of it, he could let Yukin come. But she must be alone. Then Yuqin snatched the phone from Kiri's hands and shouted joyfully, "Brother Zhang Yi will let Yuqin come live with him. She will obey him. Do whatever he orders, okay?" He replied, "Okay, come." And Mio leaned over the phone and added, "And she." Then MC said, "But his love, they don't need extra people with her, right?" She replied, "It's all up to him. She will do as he wishes." Then she headed for the exit and added, "She's already running. He should wait for her." Running after her, Mio grabbed her hand, but Yuqin snatched her hand away and shouted, "Get the hell out. She's tired of living like this, so she shouldn't interfere." Then Kiri slapped her in the face and shouted, "This shameless idiot caused them so much suffering. She wants to go to him?" And Peng said in surprise, "Yukin, how dare she treat him like this? Didn't she say she hated him and wanted to be with him?" She put her hand to her chest and, looking at him, shouted, "What's wrong with wanting to be happy? What should they do when they run out of supplies? Just wait to die?" Everyone in the room looked at her in surprise, and then she came closer and, taking his hand, said, "Peng, he is a good man. If he loves someone, he wants them to be happy, right? Even though he helped her, he can't give her as much as Zhang Yi." Then Kiri crouched down next to Peng and said, "Brother, forget about this fool. We need to save ourselves." And Mio ran after Yukin and asked, Why the hell should she have everything? She jumped on Yukin from behind, knocking her to the floor. And she screamed, she has to let her go. Don't touch her. She has to go. Then Kiri pointed her finger at her and said, this fool only thinks about herself. Just look at her. We can't let her go. Then the doctor said that they would figure it out later. They won't last long without medicine. The guy said, there is one way. Kiri looked at him and asked, which one? He adjusted his glasses and replied, there's a fireplace and fuel in Zhang Yi's house. Judging by the photo, there's plenty of food too. They can't defeat him now, but they can tell the others. That many people will be enough to break into his house. They'll simply divide everything they get equally. Yuchin shouted, guys, they're all so shameless. She wants to live with Zhang Yi, and they're going to kill him. What should she do then? Kiri swung at her again and said, it's all her fault, you fool. At that moment, Peng told her to stop. She looked at him and shouted, this woman hurt him and now she wants to throw herself into the arms of another man. He stood in front of Yuchin and told him not to talk about her. He truly loved her. If he tried, sooner or later she would love him too. He looked at Yukin and added, she shouldn't be afraid. He was on her side. Then Kiri stepped aside in irritation and said, useless. Let that idiot take care of him. After that, Kiri wrote a message in the chat. Neighbors, now they all know that there are people living in abundance. What selfish, shameless behavior. She attached several photos and wrote, these are photos and videos sent by Zhang Yi. They should see how he lived in recent days and how they survived. Do they think this is fair? They should discuss what they will do about it. At this moment, Zhengao and his subordinates were looking at the phone screen, and he thought, this guy has plenty of resources. It's time for good old-fashioned revenge. After that, people started writing in the chat. Zhang Yi, everyone is having a hard time now. They are freezing and starving. He has enough fuel to light the fireplace. You must let them in, please. They will remember his kindness. He hopes for his conscience. Aunt Lin added, Zhang Yi, she is the head of their house community. She has the final say. He must share resources with everyone. Lemay added, she and the child are starving to death. Didn't he say her baby was cute? She can make him a godfather. She's willing to do anything. Shu Hao wrote, if he lets him in, he will give him all his shares. All his family's billions will be his. And the protagonist was surprised when he saw this. After that, he looked at the fork with food and asked, why? Are they friends with them? He was in the same situation, but back then, they treated him like a piece of meat, and then they just tore him to shreds. What can you talk about with a group of animals? Meanwhile, the guy looked at Kiri and asked, isn't this guy afraid of death? They can handle him. Aunt Lin said, damn, this guy's a real freak. He only thinks about himself. Shu Hao said, idiot, if he survives this time, he will find him. The others were also indignant. Are they talking about humanity? Shouldn't neighbors help each other? What's good about living alone? Modern youth only think about themselves. If he hadn't hidden information from them, would they have ended up in this situation? That's right, it's all his fault. He must atone for his sins. After this, the protagonist poured wine into a glass and went to the window. He looked out at the street and said that he was tired of sitting at home. Why doesn't he go outside? Then he snapped his fingers and added, exactly. He has a couple of snowmobiles. This way he can go out safely and have a good time. Then he looked in surprise at the new notification. It was Dr. Kier. Mr. Zhang Yi, she has run out of food and medicine. He said, as befits a doctor, Kier is quite reasonable. She's not begging, but wants to trade for something. He thought she'd died last time because she'd given her last meal to Li Mei and her child. Although she seemed cold, she'd shown a different side at a critical moment. It would be nice to help her. But it was a shame that the smarter a woman was, the more easily she betrayed him. And then he stretched his whole body and said he wasn't going to die. Even though he had confidence in her, he still couldn't let her in. Then he wrote, if she wants to exchange, she must find something that will be useful to him. She asked, could he give something as an advance? She really can't last long. She wrapped herself in a blanket and thought that she had never asked anything from a stranger. He replied that he would give her food and medicine, but she must fulfill his request. She asked, what? He answered, it's simple. The neighbors are planning to attack him. He wants her to monitor their actions and report everything to him. Dr. Kier, she has a choice. Betray them and join him, or follow the crowd. It all depends on her. She answered, she chooses him. And he smiled. Excellent. It worked. After that, he told her to come to the exchange with useful information. He thinks she knows what needs to be done. She answered, yes, she understands. After this, the protagonist received a message. Zhang Yi, where have you disappeared to? He must answer. He will share the supplies. And he smiled and said, insatiability is addictive. Even if his house is burned to the ground, he will get nothing. The guy clenched his teeth in irritation and said, he is still stubborn. They will see how he sings. After some time, a chat was created to capture Zhang Yi's house. Zhengao wrote, friends, the main goal now is to deal with Zhang Yi. He has more supplies than everyone combined. They can take it all for themselves. No need to worry. He will not touch them, but he will take half of what they take. The guy said, that's right. We need to put aside old grudges. The main goal is to infiltrate Zhang Yi's house and take his resources. And Uncle Yu said, crazy. We need to tell Zhang Yi immediately. And Kier said, they made a move. We need to tell him. After that, she wrote, they are going to attack his apartment. The protagonist replied, he knows. She added, after seeing the video, they went berserk and are getting ready to go to him. What will he do? He replied, he will say it once. she should not come to him with them. She should better watch this show. With these words, he aimed his gun. After some time, people gathered and climbed the stairs. They were holding guns and shouting, "Zhang Yi, we need to grab knives and go after him. They will kill him. They will kill this selfish idiot. He deserves it." Then everyone stopped near the protagonist's door, and one of them said, "Zhang Yi, if he wants to survive, he must come out immediately. This is his last chance. There is no need to wait for them to break in. Otherwise it will be too late." And at that moment, the protagonist looked at the tablet screen and noticed that they were working well together. They are just cannon fodder. After that, he used his door's function, and at that moment, the man swung his hammer and shouted, "Zhang Yi, open up!" But the next second, a powerful electric shock shot through his body. The electricity spread around, hitting several more people. The man jumped aside and said, "It's high voltage, run!" The next second, several bodies fell to the floor, and the others looked on in fear. Then the guy looked at Zheng Hao and said, "His door is electrified." That's all. Before he could finish speaking, Zheng Hao pointed a gun at his head and asked, "Where is he going?" The guy said that Zhang Yi was just a beast. He killed his neighbors, and they should avenge the dead. They shouldn't be afraid and break down the door with wooden tools. He won't be able to do anything once they break through there. They will all have a warm fireplace and a sea of food. They endured cold and hunger for more than half a month. Now their lives depended on whether they could break down this door. They continued to hit the steel door with a log, while the MC covered his ears and thought, "Why so much noise?" He decided to turn on music so he wouldn't get bored, and the people outside shouted that they would kill him as soon as they opened this door. He would pay for the death of their brother. Time passed. They were already pretty exhausted, but the door was still standing. They began to wonder, what kind of door was this and why was it so strong, and how long would it take them to break it down? An expert emerged from the crowd, examined the door carefully with a magnifying glass, and said it was a door like a bank vault door. He had one at work. The men cursed and asked, "So they can't break it down?" He replied that even explosives couldn't penetrate it, much less a piece of wood. Without a key, even the best burglar in the world couldn't open it. Zhang Yi then approached the door, stuck his crossbow through the window, and then fired, hitting the man in the throat. He grabbed his neck, and the rest of the people rushed away from the door and started pushing, which caused MC to shoot several people. When he finished, they caught their breath and began to wish him dead. And then the guy told the others not to worry. He had an idea. This door was made of a special alloy. It wouldn't be so easy to open, and the others got his hint. There were a lot of them. They could try to destroy the wall. They armed themselves with hammers and started pounding the wall, and the guy happily said that this idiot wouldn't be able to make fun of them anymore. They kept pounding. Cracks appeared in the wall, and the plaster peeled off. And then the man struck again and exclaimed, "Why is the wall so strong?" The guy saw metal plates under the plaster and was very surprised, and the people exclaimed in annoyance, "Who would even build a house like that?" His apartment was completely made of steel, but they didn't give up. They started pounding everywhere to get to him, but nothing worked. Zhang Yi, meanwhile, poured himself some wine and said that the outer walls of his apartment were reinforced with 20 centimeters of extra strong steel. Not even a cannonball could penetrate them. Their methods were useless here. At this rate, they would quickly run out of strength. Meanwhile, the guy grabbed his head and exclaimed what he had done to his apartment. And the man next to him said that they knew he was renovating, but they would never have thought of such a thing. The guy hissed his name in rage and exclaimed that he knew a snowstorm was coming. He did all this on purpose to protect himself. People started arguing. He only thinks about himself. He doesn't care about the others. If they all die, so what? What's the point of surviving if he's left completely alone? How can he sleep knowing everyone else is suffering? One of them burst into tears and shouted that one day he would pay for condemning them to this suffering. Zheng Gao told them to take their time. This was just the beginning. The walls may be steel, but he doesn't think the floor and ceiling are either. Let them split into two groups and check. He doesn't believe it's all steel. People climbed into the apartments above and below Zhang Yi and tried to get to him. And the MC said that this guy was pretty smart, but he wasn't stupid either. People discovered that the floor and ceiling were also steel. He hid in a real steel box. One of them's stomach growled. He was so hungry as if he was about to die. And then an idea occurred to him. He looked at the guy next to him and asked, "Isn't that meat?" And apparently, he wasn't the only one with this idea. They all immediately wiped their drool and finally gave up. And the guy grabbed his head and asked, "Can't they really think of anything?" Another guy screamed, "And is he okay living alone? Anyone would want to live his life right now. What's wrong with him anyway?" The man suggested they get to him through the balcony, and the girl next to him said that when he was renovating, he replaced the balcony with floor-to-ceiling windows. They should try. Maybe they'll be able to get in. Hearing this, everyone was inspired. If there was a window, then there must be a way out. It was impossible to seal everything. They threw a board to his balcony, which could be walked on, and at that time he was sipping tea. Seeing a crowd of people on his balcony, he thought that if there was a funeral, it would definitely be for this crowd of people. People were furious. They shouted that as soon as they broke this window, he would be finished. He didn't have much time left. The hour of his death would soon come. So many delicious foods, and they would all be theirs. Zhang Yi stood up, took a bottle of alcohol from the table, made a Molotov cocktail, set it on fire, and threw it into the pipe, saying that soon they would not be able to utter a word. This is for them. Let them not forget to thank him. At that moment, a hatch with a pipe opened on the ceiling. A Molotov cocktail fell from there right on the guy, and all his clothes immediately burst into flames. He screamed hysterically, the people near him panicked, and then he fell from the balcony, and the MC, continuing to throw Molotov cocktails, said that burning alive is the worst death. One of them knocked on the windows, begging him to save him, but he refused. Then they rushed for help to the balcony from which they came, but the guy drove them away, saying that they were too hopeless. As soon as they stepped onto the board, he swung the hammer, throwing them off. Time passed. The people were already dead, but others began to warm themselves on their bodies. When the flames went out and they had warmed themselves enough, they threw them off the balcony and again climbed towards Zhang Yi. By this time, some of the bodies had become so frozen that they now easily crumbled. This time they did not attack. They fell to their knees and began to beg Zhang Yi to give them at least a piece. He has a lot of things. They promised to do whatever he wants. He smirked and told them not to be like that. It made him sick to even look at them, but he was so touched that he even wanted to eat. When they saw the noodles, they immediately started drooling, and he said that he could give them one more chance, but only one. He would feed noodles for a week to whoever brought him Chen Zhenghao's head. They immediately turned their gazes to him, and Zhenghao thought, what are they standing there for? Did Zhang Yi say something to them? He received a bunch of fierce looks. He felt uneasy, and when people rushed towards him, he began to threaten them with a gun. He checked the house chat, where Zhang Yi wrote about his offer, and he thought, so that's what he had in mind? He decided to fight him? His friends didn't let hungry people near him, and the guy exclaimed, what will happen to Zhang Yi's house when he leaves? Zhenghao cursed and asked them not to attack. If they didn't know how, they needed to think of something. The next day arrived. Two guys were hiding around the corner, and one of them asked, are they really going to do this? And how many will Zhenghao kill? He was afraid people would get hurt. His friend asked, what nonsense is he talking about? He asked, if they continue like this, they will die of starvation. He thought Zhenghao could hold out for long. Zhang Yi had food too, so they would simply make a trade. Zhenghao left his apartment, telling his faithful dogs to get moving. They needed to get rid of the ice as quickly as possible. He followed them, and then the guys decided to act. His dogs noticed them and warned him of the danger, and Zhenghao quickly turned around and shot them both. He nervously clenched his teeth and exclaimed that anyone who wished him dead would soon die. He ordered his buddies to carry them away, and his friend exclaimed that he had been wounded. There was a huge cut on his back, and he immediately called Dr. Zhou and asked her for help. She soon arrived, bandaged it, and said that she would not help him for free, and he said that he would give her something. She looked at the human soup and said that she would rather die than touch it, and he smirked and said that then she would die. Does she know how hard it is to find a doctor these days? She should not worry if he has to sacrifice one of his own. He will save her for the end. He stroked her cheek. She immediately waved his hand away and headed for the exit, but the guys detained her, and she warily asked what they were doing. Zhenghao took the gun and said that she would not leave until he recovered. She had no choice but to hide in a corner, while he sat down on the sofa and told his men that things couldn't go on like this. Clashes like this would sooner or later backfire on them. His friends said that all their attempts to attack Zhang Yi had ended in failure. His house was like a turtle's shell. It couldn't be penetrated. He couldn't believe he wasn't leaving his place. But they could just move into the neighbor's apartment and wait for him to come out. Hearing this, Zhou immediately stood up, and Zhenghao asked where she was going. She told him she was going to the restroom, then locked herself in and sent Zhang Yi a warning message, and he asked her to continue monitoring the situation. Meanwhile, Zhenghao went to Zhang Yi's neighbor's apartment. They didn't want any trouble and let him and his friends in without asking questions. They gave them a terrifying look as they passed, and they quickly went out into the hallway, thinking that even though they had taken the apartment, they still had some food left, so they could at least hold out for a while. But suddenly the guys attacked them, knocked them to the floor, and started beating them to death, which terrified Zhou. Zhenghao smirked and asked, she didn't think they'd just let them go, did she? It was too cold. They needed a constant supply of food. Meanwhile, at Wang Ming's house, the guy felt a strong itch on his shoulder. He removed the bandage and saw that his wound had begun to fester, which scared him greatly. He burst into tears and said that he didn't want to die, and everyone else checked their wounds too. After that, the guy grabbed his head, saying that this was the end, and Peng ran up to the girl and asked her to talk to Zhang Yi again. If this continued, they would all die. She told him that she didn't know what to do. They just needed to hold out. A few days passed, and the MC checked the cameras to see what they were doing after their unsuccessful attempts to break through. Zhenghao immediately gathered the people in a group and started threatening them with a gun, saying that if they worked together, they would succeed. He thought that there weren't many bullets left, and the last of the food supplies were running out. He needed to be on guard and deal with Zhang Yi quickly. At this time, he said that he was intimidating them so that they wouldn't attack him. Zhou called him and told him that they had gone completely crazy here. As soon as they ran out of food, They broke into other people's houses, robbing and killing people. For the past few days, they've been catching people, then killing them, and eating their bodies. She hasn't eaten anything for 2 days. She thinks she's about to die. Can he help her? He thought she might actually be useful. Finding a doctor in these conditions is extremely difficult. He can't let her die. While there's a chance, he needs to take it, and he can teach Zhenghao a lesson this way. He told her that she would do something for him, and then he would help her. After that, Pen came to him. He furiously pounded his fist on the door and asked him to let him in. His endless hiding will do him no good. MC came to the door and said that there's nothing good in an infection. His wound is at least 10 centimeters deep. If one microbe gets in, the process will be unstoppable. It's very cold outside, but his body is literally burning. All these bacteria are feeding on his flesh and blood. Soon they will spread throughout his body through the bloodstream. Peng screamed, cursing him, and he said that he was going to die anyway. No medicine would work with such a case. Why shouldn't he do something he would never have dared to do in life? And then an idea occurred to Peng. Zhang Yi was right. He was going to die anyway. What was he afraid of? He went to Yuqin, fell on his knees in front of her, which made her nervous. And then he took her hand and asked if she would marry him. She immediately turned away from him, holding her nose in disgust, and refused him. She pushed him away and exclaimed that the world was collapsing, and he was crawling towards her with his stinking hands. She urgently needed to find Zhang Yi. They were out of supplies. He burst into tears and grabbed her by the neck, shouting that she loved him, and he was going to die soon. They would go to hell together. They would always be together. She slapped him in the face, telling him to leave. He stinks, and he exclaimed indignantly, "How dare she say such a thing? Isn't it her fault?" He lashed out at her, and she asked why he blamed her for his own uselessness. He was just a loser. Meanwhile, Zhou was faced with a difficult choice: help Zhang Yi and risk his life, or continue to starve and live in fear. She still decided to take the risk and told Zhenghao that she would help that guy in the kitchen. He laughed and said that he never thought she would dare to do such a thing. She told him that she just wanted to live, and then he allowed her to help. The guy in the kitchen pointed to some firewood and asked her to chop some in reserve. And after that, they got down to business, she chopping firewood and he cooking soup. At one point, he stepped away and told her to watch the fire, and she thought that fortunately, they didn't see her as a danger. She should be fine. When there were no witnesses left, she quickly added something to the soup and stirred it all, barely holding back the nausea. Soon everyone was going to eat. Zhenghao said with a smile that he would never have thought that the doctor would join them, and his friends agreed with him. Even such a beauty can't resist hunger. She went to eat in her room and thought that the dose of sleeping pills she added there would knock them out for at least half an hour. Now all she could do was wait and pray that they didn't realize that she did it. Time passed, they began to fall asleep, and she left the room. After making sure that everyone was asleep, she sent a message to Zhang Yi and asked what he was going to do next. He answered that he wanted her to drag them to the balcony. When she was done, MC came out to the balcony and said that Zhenghao and all his henchmen were here. "That's great," she asked. "Is he going to kill them?" He threw a rope towards her and said that she would do it, that she should find his gun and bring it to him, and that she should also be sure to tie them up with ropes. She noticed that he was being too cautious and thought, can't he come and help her? He answered her with a smile that safety comes first, after which she tied everyone to the fence, and when she took out the gun, MC pointed the gun at her and ordered her to take the magazine out of the gun and throw everything to him. Then she could go. She asked why she should trust him. What if he deceives her? He said that she had no other options, and then she took out the magazine and threw the gun to him. He caught it and examined it, thinking it looks like the one he saw on him. He returned to the house, then went out to the balcony with a hose and started pouring water on the guys, and Joe quickly ran into the house and thought that they would die from hypothermia. He really is crazy. The water immediately woke them up and felt terribly cold, and they had no idea what was happening or how they got there. Zhenghao realized they were put to sleep and turned to Zhang Yi, saying they were being too noisy and should die quickly. He hosed them down again and decided not to waste any more water, as they would die anyway. The water immediately began to turn to ice, as did their bodies, and MC called the doctor, saying that she had passed the test and could come see him. Hearing this, she fell to her knees in relief and said she was on her way. She told him as she approached the door. He checked the security cameras to see if she had a gun or not, and then he opened the door and took a few steps back, pointed the gun forward, and allowed her to enter. She cautiously peered into the apartment, went inside, and as soon as the door closed, she took off her robe and said with relief that it was so warm in there. She could finally relax, and then Zhang Yi came up to her and poked a gun into her back, asking if she had forgotten anything. For example, to prove to him that she was not a danger to him. She became embarrassed and asked how he wanted her to do it. He answered that everything was quite simple. Let her show that she did not have any hidden weapons. Since she was here now, it would be right to be honest with each other, right? She proved this to him only by undressing to her underwear. Seeing that there was no weapon, he praised her and gave her a towel, telling her to take a hot bath. She had suffered so much these days. He led her to the bathroom and said that he found clothes that should suit her, and if not, he would look for something else. While she was bathing, he rummaged through her pockets, found syringes, and took them for himself. Soon she came out of the bathroom in the dress he gave her. She thanked him for the clothes, they were just the right size, and he patted the sofa, inviting her to sit. She obeyed him, and he began to dry her hair, saying that she shouldn't forget that he let her live with him for a reason. Therefore, she must obey him in everything, and if she planned anything, she should expect no mercy. She mentally noted that this guy was so cold-blooded, and he, pointing his finger at the door, said that she would live in that room. There were cameras around the perimeter of the entire apartment. The door and walls were made of steel. She could only enter and exit with his permission. If something didn't suit her, she should leave right now. She promised him that she would be obedient, and he said that she had made the right choice. In the current situation, all she could do was cling to him. He would tell her one secret and she should listen carefully. Keeping secrets was the main step in strengthening their cooperation. After all, he had killed those who tried to take his life. She had seen that. She told him she understood everything, and he sat down on the couch, saying that she'd probably heard about it on the news. An explosion in space and an energy release caused a snowstorm. As far as he knew, energy beams were capable of not only influencing the weather, but also changing the structure of the human body, and could even grant abilities. He pulled out a package of food out of nowhere, and said that, for example, he had gained the skill of space. What she saw in the apartment wasn't everything. Most of the supplies were stored in his space. They would disappear if he died, but if he lived, she would enjoy life. He tossed her the packages of food, and she thought, so he even has the right to have superpowers? When he said she could eat, she immediately pounced on the food and ate so quickly that she began to choke. He kindly handed her a glass of water and said that she hadn't yet completely won his trust. But he wasn't going to do everything around the house himself. The drain had long since frozen, so all bathroom-related manipulations were now her responsibility. She breathed a sigh of relief after drinking water, and he touched her lips, saying that she would perform maid duties in exchange for food. What was she willing to do to get all the bonuses? She took his hint and took off her dress, calling him master. Morning came. MC came into the bedroom with a plate of food, and seeing that she was still sleeping, thought that he must have overdone it yesterday. He knocked on the door and asked if she wanted to get out of bed and have a snack. She woke up, sighed heavily, and, picking up her underwear from the floor, said, "All right." They had burgers for breakfast. She ate everything quickly, as hunger was still making itself felt, and he asked if she was full. She told him that she was ready to eat much more, but that such a quantity of food could cause gastroenteritis. He threw her some warm clothes and told her to get dressed, then went to the balcony and she asked what they were going to do. He smirked and told her they were going to break some ice cubes. He gave her a bat and she said they were already dead. Why was that? He said that even dead, those idiots were an eyesore, and he wanted to get rid of them. Let her smash their bodies, so that it would serve as a clear example to others not to mess with him. So for the sake of their eternal cooperation, let her begin. She smiled nervously and remarked that he was being too persistent. Then crossed the plank to the next balcony and started hitting the frozen bodies with the bat. Zhang Yi took out his phone and started filming everything, and when she saw it, she asked in surprise why he was doing this. He told her he was recording the process to show the others. Let them know who the owner of this building was. She continued to break the ice, and when this video appeared in the house chat, everyone was very happy that this devil was finally dead. MC also sent them a message saying that Jinghao was dead, so from now on the building was under his control. They praised him for getting rid of him, and the others started asking him for food again, and Yukin called him. He was even surprised that she was still alive. He answered the call, and she asked, "Is he with that doctor now? Since Jinghao is dead, can she go to him? Doesn't he want her to live a well-fed and happy life? He can't live with another woman. He is hers, and she is completely his." He asked, "So he is still alive?" She was happy and asked so he didn't leave him, but just thought that she was already dead. She is alive. She loves him more than life, and this fool is nothing to him. Let him kick her out, then they will be happy together. After hearing this conversation, the other women pounced on her and started fighting for Zhang Yi, and Zhou, after listening to them, embarrassedly said that she was not like them, so he should not worry. His face blushed slightly, then he smirked and thought, if Yuqin saw them together, she would go crazy, right? While her friends were pulling her hair, he told her that she was a good person. But a little late, he found a better man. She was happy for them, right? She immediately rushed to the phone and seeing a photo of him with that doctor, screamed that he couldn't do this to her. She loved him much more. That girl didn't love him and was just using him. Let him give her one and only chance, and she would prove to him that she truly loved him. He answered her that it was too late. They really loved each other. Could he give up on her for her? They shouldn't keep in touch with her. Otherwise, she might misunderstand him. Yukin burst into tears and exclaimed that she didn't believe him. He had chased after her before. He had done it for 2 whole years. What had changed now? She punched her fist in despair, exclaiming that it was all that idiot's fault. She should die. Her friends just laughed at her, and the MC ended the call and thought he had had enough fun. There was no point in continuing the conversation. She was about to die anyway. After that, he took Zhou's hand and asked if she thought he was cruel. She answered him that she thought he had his reasons. He smiled, saying that he was glad she understood everything, after which she set the table and he told her to start eating. He would join her later. Aunt Lin wrote in the general chat that she would contact the right people. She had relatives in the police. They are obliged to obey her, otherwise, when the time comes, they will all be shot. Let them bring her food immediately. Joe thought he was afraid she would poison him, and that was why he wasn't eating, but he hadn't even thought about that. He said it was strange. If he wasn't mistaken, Zheng Hao was one of the first to grab that old woman. It's a miracle she's still alive. Joe said that when she was examining her grandson, she took pity on them and gave them some supplies, and he gave her a displeased look. She became agitated and hurriedly said that back then, it was just the beginning. She didn't think it would drag on for so long. In the current situation, she wouldn't act so rashly. He said that wasn't the problem. She'd probably eaten them long ago. Why was she still alive? Joe understood everything. She said that her grandson had died about 10 days ago due to a lack of medicines, and he noted that everything then was quite logical. Suddenly, a loud laugh was heard from the building opposite. A man, mad with hunger, came out onto the balcony, climbed over the railing, and then jumped as if diving into water. This sight made the girl uneasy, and she asked, "When will this storm end?" He said that the weather was out of their control. They could only wait. Uncle Yu called him. He answered the phone, and the man, laughing awkwardly, asked if he was okay. He smiled and asked him to drop the politeness. Let him just say what he needed. He would be happy to help. He thought that Uncle Yu was one of the few good and honest people. He could be of use to him in the future. Uncle Yu said that the thing is that Li Mei's daughter, Tongbao, had a fever, and he didn't have any medicine at home. Now her whole body was red, and he and her mother were very worried. Does he by any chance have any medicine? He thought that Uncle Yu was single, and Li Mei had a nice figure. She's young, and he cares for her so much. He told him he had something, so he could come and share it with him. Uncle Yu thanked him, and he said with a smile that they had helped him twice, so they should ask for help without shame. He would never refuse him. They had known each other for many years. He was closer to him even than his own uncle. Let him come for the medicines. He ended the call and thought that Li Mei wasn't that simple. Uncle Yu was the only one who listened to her and made at least some supplies, and naturally, he was the best option for her. Joe handed him a glass and asked if they were that close. He answered her that, in a situation like this, you should only think about your own benefit. He was a good person, and if he helped him, he would be able to use him in the future. He drank what she gave him and said that he didn't want this disaster to change him. Such people are rare. Soon there was a knock at the door. Zhang Yi looked into the corridor through the cameras and saw Li Mei too. He approached the door and called out to Uncle Yu, and his woman asked him to help. Her child had a fever. He threw a package of medicines through the window and told them to leave. That would be enough. Uncle Yu thanked him with a smile for his help, and Li Mei began to beg him to take the child with him for a while. He had a heater and warmth at home, and their apartment was too cold. She was sick, and he was afraid that she would freeze to death. He wondered if she was going too far. He was afraid that if he took the child, she would ask for it too. He answered her that he couldn't let just anyone in here, and besides, he was almost out of fuel. The temperature wasn't much different from outside. Uncle Yu told Li Mei that Zhang Yi had already helped them by giving medicine for the child. They would go back and just dress warmer. She burst into tears and asked if a man could understand her. Her daughter was still so little. Couldn't he understand? She turned to Zhang Yi and said that she knew it was useless to ask, but let him take the child with him. Let her live with him, at least for a little while. He answered that she couldn't predict whether he would agree to this before the end of the world. Everyone in this building is waiting for him to die. They want to take over his house. He thinks that they also know the feeling of fear, and they understand it. Uncle Yu tried to reason with his woman, saying that Zhang Yi had already helped them so much. Who else would have given them medicines? Does she even understand how hard it is to get them now? She said that he let the doctor live with him, and MC replied that they were dating. Zhao immediately became embarrassed and smiled. Even though he said it just like that, she still liked to hear it. Uncle Yu told Li Mei that they had to leave. He helped them, and that was enough. She looked at her daughter and said that she knew it, but she still wanted a better life for her. Uncle Yu took her away and apologized to Zhang Yi that he should ignore her. They said goodbye and MC returned to Zhou, saying that this woman was so unbearable. She asked, "Aren't there many like her?" He lay on her lap and told her that she was right, but he couldn't ruin his relationship with Uncle Yu. They had returned to their apartment in the meantime, and Uncle Yu scolded Li Mei, asking how she could behave like that. How could she ask a stranger to look after her child? She said that it was for her own good. Why should she live if she was gone? He sat down next to her and said that he understood everything, but kindness also had to be paid for. If it weren't for Zhang Yi, he wouldn't have any supplies. He would have died long ago. He was sure that his kindness would be rewarded. Her face darkened for a second. Then, she laid her head on his shoulder and said that she didn't really think he deserved such praise. After all, he was wary of him too. He immediately ordered her to shut up, and she told him that she hadn't said anything bad. She thinks he just doesn't want to help him. He just threw away the medicines. Is that help? Maybe he uses such trifles to take advantage of him later. Would a good person treat dozens of people so cruelly? The man became very angry, and when she said another word, he ordered her to shut up and not to say such a thing again. He is still able to distinguish good from evil, or is he no longer a human being in her eyes? She apologized to him, admitted that she was wrong. She was saying this for his own good. so that he would be more careful. He left the room with a gloomy face, saying that today he would sleep in the living room and they should stay here. She said that she would make his bed now, and thought that she could not give up. She had to find a way to get into Chinese apartment, and she would do everything to ensure that she and her daughter did not want for anything. Time passed, and bandits began to approach the house. They dug a tunnel to the main entrance and entered the building, and their intentions were clearly not good. They went up several floors, where the man was now. Seeing strangers, he immediately started running and they followed him. They hit him with a shovel, cutting his neck, and the guy, looking at his body, asked, "What should they do now?" Their leader said that they would leave him here for now and sort things out before leaving. They went up to the 24th floor. The leader called Lao Yi and ordered him to act. He put dynamite under Zhang Yi's door, lit it, and ran to the end of the corridor, and then there was an explosion. The roar immediately woke up Zhang Yi and grabbed his gun. He hurried to check what was going on. The living room and bedroom were fine. The door was also undamaged. He saw people and thought, could it really be another gang? They had rebar, sticks, axes, shovels, and other construction tools with them. A crew was just being hired in the neighboring building. It must be them. Since they came specifically to him, it means that he has become known beyond the borders of this building. Meanwhile, they approached the door. Their leader examined everything carefully and asked in confusion, "Why is it still intact?" Even the explosives couldn't penetrate this door. Lao Yi scratched his head in confusion and said that this shouldn't be the case. He made the explosives himself. Was it really damp? The guys suggested they just break down the door, while MC, in a rage, opened the hatch and took out white phosphorus dissolved in sulfur dioxide. This is a simplified formula for explosives. When burning, it reaches over 1,000 degrees Celsius. He threw it into the corridor along with a Molotov cocktail, and the people started running, and then everything exploded, and the fire engulfed most of them, including Lao Yi. A bullet pierced his head. Zhang Yi fired, and the people panicked. The burning people rushed to their boss, begging him for help, but MC quickly finished them off. The last of them died from his bullet, and he thought it was good that he hadn't bought a machine gun. The ammunition consumption would have been much higher. The cold had eliminated most of the potential enemies, leaving only the most desperate and cruel. He needed to think of a new way to get rid of them. They came prepared, which meant they would only relax once they'd killed everyone. He returned to the bedroom. Jia was shivering under the blanket, covering her head, and he hurried to calm her down. She looked up at him with tear-stained eyes, then realized she'd shown fear and stood up abruptly, sheepishly saying she wasn't afraid. She just decided to hide, just in case there was an earthquake. He told her they lived on the 24th floor. If there was an earthquake, they'd be crushed anyway. She asked what had happened, and when he told her everything, she said those workers were more dangerous than even Zhengao. He said those people were nothing without weapons. Now people who were previously strangers to each other have united and become a kind of family. Luckily, he got rid of them. Otherwise, he simply wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully at night. She asked if he would take revenge on them, and he answered her that of course he would, but not just for himself. To live in peace, you need to get rid of the trash. He went into the general chat. People had already started discussing what happened, and he told them that a group of workers from Building 26 broke into their house to rob and kill. It's good that he managed to stop it. The guy from the 10th floor was killed. Judging by the sound, it was the explosives they brought. They got to them by digging a tunnel in the snow. People asked what to do. They couldn't handle them. There weren't many of them, and most of them were women and children. It's good that they have Zhang Yi. With him, their safety is guaranteed. He's their hero. But he decided to leave the solution to the residents of the house, saying that he used up his weapons supplies, so now they could only count on themselves. Uncle Yu called him. The first thing he asked was if he was okay and if he needed help. He had once had a drink with them, but he didn't think they were capable of murder. He told him that it was really dangerous. He didn't have a plan yet, but since he had met them, he should tell him everything he knew about them. He would figure out what they could do to them. The man asked, so he wanted them to all unite against them? He confirmed this and said that he would then write about it in the chat, but he asked him not to do this. It would only create doubt in them. They would think that he was in league with him. Uncle Yu asked what they should do then, and he said that there was no rush. He had enough supplies. Since they came here once, it meant they would definitely return for revenge. Sooner or later, the neighbors would come running to them for help. Uncle Yu remarked on his cleverness and agreed, after which the call ended, and MC turned to Zhou, saying he had a favor to ask. Most of the neighbors hated him, so there were some things he couldn't do personally. She and Uncle Yu would gather information for him. The sooner they figured everything out, the better for them. A few days later, Zhou came to him with a report, dressed in a maid costume for some reason. She pointed to a piece of paper and said that she had compiled all the information received from Uncle Yu. Their main enemy is a group of people from Building 26, a united gang of construction workers, and they are quite strong. They have shovels, rebar, and even firearms. Another threat is Building 21. There are two leaders there, Wang Qian and Xiao Lu. They have many strong young men in their 20s under their command. They call themselves a gang of wild wolves. Zhang Yi said, puzzled, that there weren't many residents left in the other buildings. Most had surrendered or died of exhaustion, so there was no need to worry about them. They needed to continue gathering information, especially about weapons, if they had any. They needed to minimize all risks. She sheepishly told him that she understood everything, and in the meantime, those bandits had taken over one of the apartments, beating its owner to death. Their boss said that they would leave Zhang Yi for later. First, they needed to deal with the others. They wrote threats on the wall in blood, and the boss said that they would beg them for mercy. Meanwhile, the building's general chat was exploding with messages, people telling Zhang Yi that he had to solve the problems he himself had created. Why should they pay for it? They shouldn't have to pay for other people's mistakes, right? They said that if they didn't hand him over, they would kill them. If he had any conscience, let him surrender to them. MC picked up the phone and noted that they responded even faster than he expected, then wrote that they came and were killed. What's in it for him? If they can't stand up for themselves, that's their problem. As they say, those people are very dangerous. Why should he surrender to them? They wrote back that he was safe. But what should they do? Why should they suffer? It's his fault, and they should sort out the problems. He clicked his tongue in displeasure and wrote that they would die anyway. What difference did it make from what? They indignantly asked. How dare he ask such questions? He did nothing when they were being robbed. He sent them a voice message saying that he could kill them personally, and this made them uneasy. The guy threw the phone away and clutched his head, asking what he should do. He thought that he could live normally without Zhenggao, but as a result, an even more brutal gang appeared. Will they really kill them all? If the snow doesn't melt soon, they will all die. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi called Uncle Yu, saying that it was time to act. He understood everything and wrote in the chat, telling them not to panic. There were no more than 20 of them. If they united, they could definitely handle them. They were very happy to see him and asked what plan he was proposing, and he said that their supplies were almost depleted. They hadn't eaten for several days, so they had almost no strength left. MC will definitely be able to fight. He has a lot of food and weapons, even though he is leading them. He should answer something, but will they be able to convince him? The guy wrote that all hope is on him, after which Uncle Yu contacted Zhang Yi and asked what they should do now. He told him that everything is fine. When the time comes, they will join them. Through teamwork, they will save the building. He went to the general chat and created a group call and said that he came to talk for the common good. Are they ready to listen to any conditions? Someone told him to stop. Let him just say if he is ready to help them. And he smirked and asked if they're ready to do whatever he says. They answered him that as long as he does not order them to die, they agree. Then he asked if he told them to arm themselves and go against that gang, would they agree? They hesitated, and he asked, do they want to push all the problems onto him? And why should he save their lives? They will just wait until they come back and kill someone. Then they will talk. Uncle Yu asked him not to hang up. They are all listening to him. He will work hard to keep them all alive. What are they all hesitating about? Do they want to wait until they are all slaughtered? MC said that from now on they all obey him. Whoever is lazy will get nothing. Then they should not reproach him for this. He warned them. He ended the call and everyone in the chat immediately became active and called the others. And Zhang Yi wrote that whoever refuses deserves to die. But they should not worry. He will not let them starve. As long as they obey him, he will give them supplies. He thought that before he started defending the building, he needed to make sure they were even capable of fighting. They would need to get out for supplies and weapons. As for the method, the best option was the transport he had hidden in space. In such harsh conditions, he could easily move around the city. Someone asked if he would be able to get supplies. The girl wrote that it was impossible to drive through such snow. He wanted to walk. They would just freeze. MC said that none of that mattered. He had to try for their sake. Uncle Yu told them not to worry. He had worked in a warehouse for several years, so he knew where some of them were located in the city. Aunt Lin, meanwhile, clutched her head and thought that since she was the manager, she would definitely be held accountable for everything, and the guy couldn't live without food anymore. They all immediately started tearfully asking Zhang Yi for help and thanking him, and Zhou said that now they would be happy to join him. And he told her that it didn't matter. For him, they were just cannon fodder. A small favor made him a god in their eyes. She asked worriedly, was he really going to go outside? He got dressed and said that there were more than enough supplies for them. He just needed a suitable opportunity to go out and look around. She stated that she will go with him, and he put his finger on her lips, indicating that she should remain silent, and said that they were in a relationship after all. She thinks he doesn't trust her? She looked away embarrassedly, and he walked to the exit, saying that he trusts her. Let her sit here and wait for him. He will be back soon. But before that, he took all the fuel and food. He went down to the 4th floor, opened the window, and jumped out of the building. Since the snow was still loose, it was quite difficult for him to walk. He found a place where there would be no witnesses, took the snowmobile out of space, and drove away. And of course, everyone saw his vehicle. He thought that something told him that someone would target him because of the snowmobile. He hadn't been outside for so long. Now he had a chance to organize street racing. It was so cool. He drove to the police station, broke a window, and went inside. He looked around, noticed a bunch of frozen policemen in the corner, and approached them with the thought that, when it all started, They must have been on night duty and they did not have suitable clothes. Those who protected their city deserved respect. He covered the body of one of them with a cloth and noticed something. A set of keys was visible from under the cloth. He was very happy and thought that now he had access to the armory. He took it, found the right key, and went to the warehouse. There was a whole pile of equipment waiting for him there, including ammunition, various types of firearms, and even rifles. He took a sniper rifle and thought that he had become much calmer lately, and his shooting accuracy had improved significantly. He had performed well in the clash with that gang. He must have talent. All that remained was to form a strong team. He took all the weapons, but he couldn't forget about cannon fodder. Supermarkets located near residential complexes were probably fenced off. The likelihood of goods surviving in the suburbs was much higher. He set off on a snowmobile to search. He found a shopping center covered in snow up to the roof and sneaked into the building by breaking a window. Once inside, he looked around and thought that the luxury brands sold here, which he could never afford, had now turned into ordinary trash. The food should be on the floor below. Along the way, he would collect what he also needed. He went down to the grocery store. A lot of the food had gone bad during this time. He threw everything into bags and thought that he wouldn't eat this even if he was paid for it. But for these idiots, this would be enough. After some time, he returned to the house. The bandits saw his snowmobile, and their boss said that it could move on snow. If they took the snowmobile, they would be able to get out for supplies and put an end to their suffering. His buddy said that they called this thing an electric sled, and he said that he didn't care what it was, they needed to get rid of this guy. MC at this time looked at the people watching him from the windows and thought that his best hope was a vehicle that could move on snow. Once everyone found out about this, they would only get angrier at him. Luckily, he would be able to fight them off. He went to the window where Uncle Yu met him, and he said that he was indeed thoroughly prepared. He threw the bags out the window and said that finding supplies outside wasn't that easy. He'd gone to all the supermarkets nearby and hadn't really found anything. People gathered in the hallway, and he pointed to the bags and said he'd spent a lot of effort getting them supplies. When Joe emptied the bags of fruits and vegetables, they rejoiced and began praising Zhang Yi, calling him a hero. He shouted that, of course, he'd collected these products for them, but he had no intention of feeding slackers. People from another building approached them to take away the food, and he pointed at them and said that for killing each one, they would receive rations. They were confused, but they had long since stopped caring about morale and the like. Hunger was stronger. Taking up arms, they rushed to the attack, which the gang hadn't expected, and they clashed in battle. They were beating each other, screaming that they wouldn't let them take their supplies, and Uncle Yu only turned up the heat, yelling at them to attack. There were more of them. The leader of that gang was killed. The people immediately froze and ran in fear, and these ones finally calmed down. They had reclaimed their food. Zhou looked at the wounded and thought that they could still be saved, but this would require professional equipment and medicine, and MC wouldn't spend money on people like that. They went to the lobby. Zhang Yi praised everyone for their excellent work and asked if they now understood that as long as they worked together, they wouldn't be afraid of anyone. He called over the two guys who were the first to rush in and gave them food and praised them, saying that if they maintained this fervor, they wouldn't have to worry about their livelihood. They thanked him and promised him to work harder, and he thought that the feeling of hunger was wonderful. They are ready to do anything for food. This is exactly what he needs. After that, he called the others over and distributed food to them, depending on their contribution. He gave some of them just one chocolate bar, and seeing how upset they were, he mentally told them that the more you work, the more you get. If you want to be full, work. He called Shu Hao, who fell to his knees in front of him and held out his palms, asking where his food was. He gave him a displeased look, then threw a candy at his feet and said that here was his food. He became very indignant and asked, "Is this a thing? Just one candy?" He asked in response, "Does he have the conscience to be hysterical?" While everyone was working, he was hiding behind their backs. He shouldn't think that he didn't see it. He didn't even touch one of them. He was giving him this candy because he was kind. The rest of the people quietly laughed at him, and he exclaimed, "Is it his fault?" They dealt with them so quickly that he didn't even have a chance to try. He said it wasn't his problem. He wasn't interested in the process, only the result. Shu Hao exclaimed that it was unfair. He was very biased towards him. He grinned and asked if he wanted to discuss justice. He waved his hand at the guys. They immediately threw the guy to the floor, and he said that he gives orders, and he should be punished for disobedience. This awaits everyone who disobeys him. He threatened him with a gun, and the guys started kicking him, and he said that if someone doesn't agree with him, he doesn't hold anyone back. They can just up and leave. They remained silent, and he happily said that apparently they understood each other. Shu Hao called him a liar. Then he stepped on his hand and showed him a candy, saying that he hoped that next time he would behave better. He told the others that they didn't need such trash, and since the supplies were distributed, they would put the rest away for now. Zhou hid the food in her bag, and Yuchen's voice was heard from the crowd, saying that she didn't get anything. She and her friend lay down on the floor and held out their palms, and she said that she was his love. He didn't wish her any harm, right? Her friend asked him not to forget about her either, and he said with a sinister grin that of course he hadn't forgotten about them. He couldn't do without them. They became nervous, and the girl indignantly exclaimed, "Why was he singling them out from the rest?" Yuchin said he wouldn't do anything bad to her and burst into tears, asking, "Didn't he say that he loved her?" She extended her hand to him, but he waved it away and asked, did she really take his word seriously? She was just using him. Besides, now he has a girlfriend. She's 1,000 times stronger than some. So he asks her not to bother him in the future. Yuchin grabbed her head and exclaimed that this couldn't be. He had offered her to live with him. Why had he changed his mind? The woman called her shameless and told her to keep dreaming. And the MC turned to Shu Hao and asked what everyone called her. He answered that her names were Universal Socket, Bus, and Russian Roulette. People laughed at this and said that they never thought there were such talents in their house. Someone said that fortunately, he had found out about it a long time ago, so he didn't try too hard. Yuchin jumped up and ordered them all to shut up, then ran away, unable to bear the shame, and Zhang Yi gave Shu Hao a reward, and he promised to be obedient to him in the future. That girl, her friend, was also taken away, and the MC said that since they got rid of the trash, they needed to discuss how to strengthen the building. There are still 47 people left in their building, not counting the children. He, Dr. Zhou, Uncle Yu, and Limei will be on their own. The rest will be divided into groups of 7 or 8 people. Everyone will be on duty to be able to repel an enemy attack in time. As soon as they notice someone approaching, they are to hit the railing to alert the others. As he mentioned earlier, there is a reward system. If they kill 5, they will receive food. While on duty, they eat only what they have themselves. He told Uncle Yu that he will be responsible for this, and then returned home with Zhou. She asked what was happening outside, and he told her that the snowfall had paralyzed the city. The low-rise buildings were completely covered in snow. Even if the snowfall stops and the temperature returns to normal, it will take at least half a month for everything to melt. She noted that winter is coming, which means the temperature will only drop. He got up from the couch and, scattering the weapons he got from the police station on the floor, told her that it was no problem for them. He took a sniper rifle and said that no one could get to them. The worst thing in the current situation was the people they would have to face. He decided to test the weapon, went out onto the balcony, looked through the scope, and immediately saw several people walking through the snowdrifts, and thought that it looked like he was aiming at his snowmobile. His bait with the garage worked. This guy clearly wouldn't be happy with the find. Uncle Yu called him and thanked him for the noodles. Let him just not be angry at Limei's words. He asked why he was so polite to him. He didn't have to talk to him like that. By the way, was he really ready to raise someone else's child? He answered him that it didn't matter at all. He was lucky to have found such a woman. Zhang Yi said that he underestimated himself. In real life, a man like him is a real treasure. But Shay is also good. No wedding expenses, nothing like that. The man laughed and said that the child is enough for him. He decided to change the subject and asked him not to be angry with her, to which he replied that he respected both of them. He hoped that they would be happy. Uncle Yu smiled and told him to call anytime, after which the call ended and the MC told his girlfriend that some things should not be rushed. She agreed with him, and then they kissed. Time passed. A group of armed men entered the lobby, and as soon as they stepped onto the stairs, the guy dropped a brick on them, which almost killed one of them, and knocked on the railing, raising the alarm and telling everyone to quickly go earn their food. The guy said that he turned them in. What will they do now? His friend, furious, said that they will kill them, but he cannot believe that these cowards were prepared. They ran up the stairs, beating up everyone in their path, and when the leader's friend fell, he decided to retreat. Watching them run away, the residents of the house wondered whether they should pursue them, but they quickly discarded the idea because it was cold there. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi called them a pack of crazy hungry dogs and thought that they really decided to attack them again. Would he be able to hit them with a sniper rifle from such a distance? He took out a rifle and decided to try it out. He aimed at one of the fleeing guys and thought that this scope was really powerful. You could even see an ant through it. After that, he pulled the trigger, killed the guy, and his comrades turned to him, wondering who just shot. MC smiled at his accuracy. He himself was surprised that he hit him on the first try. People started running. He took aim again and decided to try again, then fired, reloaded and fired again, killing them all. After finishing, he smiled contentedly and thought that now he wouldn't have to leave the house to use the unwanted ones. Meanwhile, people crowded at the windows. They all saw how those guys just died and said that the shot came from above. It must have been Zhang Yi. Does he really have a sniper rifle? From such a distance, he killed everyone with one shot. He never thought he would turn out to be a sniper. They better listen to him in the future. They will live until he loses his temper. Meanwhile, MC thought that the shot had alarmed many people. After tonight, many will no longer be able to sleep peacefully. The next day came. Zhou cooked him food, said that her cooking is not like in a restaurant, so he should not judge her dish too harshly. He said that they have a lot of time, so she can practice more. If they eat only instant noodles, they will quickly get bored of it, so they need to diversify their diet. He started eating. She sat down next to him and said that she heard gunshots yesterday. Was it him? He answered her that he killed 7 with a sniper rifle, and she said with a smile that he was so amazing. He asked if she was interested in why he used a rifle. She answered him that it had nothing to do with her. She did not care what and how he did. The main thing was that it was not them in their place. He smiled contentedly and noted that she was really smart. She did not have unnecessary curiosity, and he was glad of it. Meanwhile, the people from the building opposite saw that all the people were dead, and the guy asked the boss what they should do now. They were all dead, but more than half of the people were missing. What should they do now? The boss punched them in anger and exclaimed that they had guns. What should they do with them? His subordinate said that without his snowmobile and supplies, they would only have enough food for a few days, and he ordered his body to be brought here in the evening. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi decided to take a walk. People were very friendly towards him, because if they wanted to survive in the building, they shouldn't provoke him. After getting on the snowmobile, MC put on headphones and contacted Uncle Yu, thanking him for the information. He would ask him to organize a group of people to go among their building. He told him not to worry, he would guard this place until his death. Meanwhile, in Building 21, they saw him leaving on his snowmobile again, and the man, Wang Jian, asked where he was hiding it. He sent people to the garage yesterday, but there was nothing there. His friend said that their area is large, maybe he hides it in a secret place, and that's why it's so hard to find. The man said that in any case, this snowmobile should be in their hands. With this, they can go for supplies, then there will be no problem expanding the team. The guy agreed with him. They should become heroes of this troubled time, and his friend hissed through clenched teeth. But now they needed to find a way to get a few packs of cigarettes. He hadn't smoked for half a month. He would soon go crazy without them. Time passed. Zhang Yi drove past a store and thought that there were only a few large supermarkets left today where he could find groceries. The southern base came to mind. He had emptied the main warehouse, but there must have been something left there. He needed to go there and check if there was anything useful left. He soon arrived at the place. The bulk of the products supplied to the city was concentrated there. If he managed to take all the materials, then even feeding 1,000 people would not be a problem for him. He smashed the glass roof and went inside. Time passed. He moved to another warehouse, but inside he found it almost empty. As he thought, everything easily accessible had long been stolen. He went down to the warehouse. There were only expensive cars everywhere, and he took everything in case it would come in handy in the future. He climbed out of the warehouse and thought that because he used the snowmobile so often, he might run out of fuel, so he needed to go to a gas station and refill. When he arrived at the gas station, it turned out to be covered in snow too, but he hadn't thought about that at all. He didn't know what to do. Was this really the only place to fill up? Would he really have to save fuel? He lay down on the snow and thought that there weren't many people left. It was a shame they couldn't use large equipment for excavation. And then, the most brilliant idea came to him. He could dig everything up. The snow was less than a month old. Nothing had yet had time to freeze, so it was entirely possible. The snow was up to 10 meters deep, so he could easily try to dig entrances. He pulled out the excavator, filled it with fuel, climbed into the cabin, and decided to get started. Luckily, he had operated similar equipment at the warehouse. There shouldn't be any problems, and it wouldn't take long. He drove up to the gas station and started digging. Some time passed, and finally he dug out the entrance. If he had dug it by hand, he would have been very tired. He entered the gas station. Fuel was usually stored underground, so he decided to check there, just in case. He opened the door and went down to the floor below, where the fuel tanks were located. With 3 such storage facilities, he would no longer have to worry about gasoline. He unscrewed the pipe from the tank, pulled a bag over the hole, and a thought occurred to him. If he got here so calmly, does that mean that all the supplies are now his? The remnants of civilization buried under the snow are now his. He threw the tanks into his space, and soon evening fell. He settled the issue with fuel and supplies. Today he would have a good rest, and tomorrow at dawn he would set off for the place Uncle Yu had spoken of. Inside the store, he pitched a tent and went to bed. Meanwhile, inside the house, a woman called Dr. Zhou to examine her child, who had been sick for 2 days. Zhou sighed heavily and thought. Zhang Yi left food but took all the medicine. Uncle Yu came running, found something, and handed it to the doctor, then patted the woman on the shoulder and told her not to worry. Zhang Yi would be back soon, and everything would be fine. After Uncle Yu brought the medicine, the child improved, and the woman thanked them for their help. Zhou said that she should thank Zhang Yi, not them, since it was he who gave them the medicine. She smiled awkwardly, noticing her rightness, and when it was time to leave, someone quickly came down from the upper floor and attacked the poor woman. It was Aunt Lin, who attacked her with a knife, screaming that her grandson had died. so she should experience it for herself. The knife pierced her neck. Zhou managed to catch the child, and his mother asked her to take care of him, then fell. The old woman still wouldn't calm down. She threatened Zhou with a knife and ordered her to give up the child. She asked her to calm down, saying that this child was the same age as her grandson, and she responded by saying that her grandson had died. So why should this one live? Zhou realized that talking to her was useless and ran up to the floor above. The old woman rushed after her, grabbed her by the leg, and raised the knife over it, saying that she hadn't saved his grandson and would now pay for it. Zhou clutched the child to her chest and braced herself for the blow, but Uncle Yu came to her aid just in time and took the blow with his hand. The old woman fell down the stairs and he told the doctor that he was fine. How was the child? Didn't she hit her? She told him that she was fine, but the child's mother was dead. Uncle Yu breathed a sigh of relief. He couldn't even imagine what he would say to Zhang Yi if something happened to her. She said it was partly her fault. She didn't think she could last so long without food. Aunt Lin called the man an old man, afraid of death. He was also to blame for her grandson's death. Zhang Yi, doctor, they were all to blame for this, and therefore they must die. The old woman finally went crazy. Zhou handed the child over to another woman, and Uncle Yu approached the madwoman and ordered her to stop. Zhang Yi had rid them of Zheng Hao. Without him, they would all have died long ago, so she should shut her mouth. Zhao told the old woman not to blame him for not giving her medicine, and she screamed that her grandson had died because of his refusal. Zhao reminded her that when she persuaded him to give her medicine and came to her, the child had already been killed by her. She started denying everything, screaming and blaming them for the boy's death, and even after they left, her hysteria continued. The other residents of the house were shocked that she killed her own grandson. She had simply tormented him all this time. Her son and daughter-in-law entrusted the boy to her. Was she even worthy of this? One of them turned to his friend and said that this old woman had done so much evil and would not last long anyway. Why don't they help her? His friend asked what he was planning, and he took out a lighter, answering him that she was so fat and they had not eaten for several days. The old woman's fate was clear, and when morning came, MC woke up and decided to go to that place. He arrived at the building. He again had to use an excavator to dig up the entrance, and he thought, is this the entrance? There must be an armory somewhere nearby. Entering the building, he noticed that this place is quite far away and looks quite secure. So why is no one here? He entered one of the dorm rooms and noticed the absence of signs of life, which was rather strange. Perhaps they had left earlier? Perhaps someone knew the end was approaching and took all the ammunition? They were probably just lying low and waiting for the time to restore the old order in the new world. He returned to the excavator and thought that a large number of armed people could be a serious problem. He needed to have time to prepare for this. Using the excavator, he broke through the entrance to the warehouse and noticed that this place was different from what he had imagined. Inside, there was a pile of boxes with weapons and equipment, which he was very happy about. There were ammunition, his favorite sniper rifles, even grenades. They were supposed to take everything with them before leaving. Judging by the remains, they managed to carry most of it, but that was no big deal. He mounted the snowmobile and decided that was enough for today. If he needed to replenish his supplies in the future, he would find similar places. When he returned home, he was met with indignation from the people because he hadn't brought any food, and he told them that he had searched many places today but found nothing. They would have to be patient. They didn't believe him. There were many shops there. Maybe he should look some more? They had absolutely nothing to eat. He didn't like their tone and asked with a sinister grin, "Are they finished?" Lately, they had forgotten who had saved them. It hadn't even been a few days since their deal was made, and they were already getting insolent. Once everything returned to normal, they would get their own food. With these words, he immediately reined them in, and one of them said that he misunderstood them. They understand that it is difficult to find food in such conditions. Let him just go and rest first. He was still unhappy and told them to disperse, and one of them nervously clenched his teeth and mentally called him shameless. They tried so hard for him, and he treated them like this. He discreetly took out a knife and hid it behind his back, and pretending to be worried about him, said that it was not safe to go outside alone. He should take someone with him. His snowmobile could fit at least 3 people. They could go on forays together. Seeing the knife, the others decided to support his plan and told Zhang Yi that they were only happy to help him if he needed anything. They would be happy to help him. He quickly took out a pistol and shot the guy, saying that unfortunately, he did not believe a single word they said. Apparently, he spoiled them too much. They didn't understand what unquestioning obedience meant. The man raised his hands and pretended it wasn't their fault, that they'd simply made an offer, and that it was his own fault he'd ended up like this. They weren't going to argue with him. But MC knew that if he didn't kill them, the others would feel entitled, so he opened fire, killing several people. The rest managed to escape because Zhao distracted him. She called out to him and asked if anything had happened to him. He'd been there so long. Uncle Yu looked at the bodies with disgust and said, "Have these guys forgotten who they owe everything to?" Zhang Yi told the girl that he was fine. He just had a couple of scratches. He'd always been a kind person. So be it. He'd forgive those who ran away. He suggested they go back, and Lemay thought, and he calls himself kind. As Zhang Yi and Zhou walked to their apartment, he smiled, thinking that everything was almost ready. He had plenty of cannon fodder. A little cleanup wouldn't hurt. Waking up at home, he asked Joe to tell him what had happened during his absence. Learning that Aunt Lin had wanted to kill the child's mother, but in the end, she had gotten even. He said she deserved it and asked if there was anything else. She told him that the man from Building 9 wanted him to negotiate, and he asked, perplexed, what should they talk about? They continued to sit in the room together for a while. They told her they were already awaiting negotiations. They would only share details with him personally. Zhang Yi asked again. They want to cooperate, but why? He relaxed and said he didn't need anything from them, that they could only wait until death. Why would he need them? She asked what she should tell him, that he hadn't agreed to negotiate. Zhang Yi said that wasn't necessary. Let her tell him everything she knew about them, their building, and its residents. She replied, okay. Lin Yu headed a cosmetics company in Tianhai worth $200 million, but it turned out to be something of a pyramid scheme. She's about 40 years old, but she's in good shape, has a strong character, and a firm hand. Under her leadership, there are about 10 survivors in Building 9. According to Zhao's information, she holds a leadership position in Building 9. Zhang Yi paused and replied that at a time like this, even a woman could assume the reins of power, and she was certainly not that simple, no matter what her plans were. Zhou asked again, so he had decided to meet her after all? It would be wise to explore the situation. He replied that he needed to understand what was going on in other people's minds and glanced at the chat on his phone screen. He was surprised to see Li Jian there. Apparently, he felt like they had met before but hadn't managed to get close. Perhaps he was somehow connected to that woman, and they shared a common goal? He accepted a friend request from Lin Yu, president of Furong Group, and Li Jian, CFO of South China Storage. Lin Yu greeted him and said that she was from Building 9 and was currently responsible for that, and that she wanted to discuss something with him. She realized she really needed him, and he asked again what exactly she wanted to discuss. Lin Yu asked if they could discuss this over the phone instead of texting. He replied that if she had anything to say, she should speak frankly. He wasn't known for his patience. Lin Yu frowned at his cruelty and realized she needed to be on her guard. People said this guy had killed a ton of people, and he also had a snowmobile and a sniper rifle, so she needed to be more careful. She bit her lip tensely and replied, Mr. Zhang Yi, she's long admired him and hopes to meet him halfway. She knew he had a snowmobile and could go for supplies, so they'd like to cooperate. Zhang Yi asked again, what could she offer him? She replied that she had a rather sophisticated team here, and with their people and his snowmobile, efficiency would increase exponentially. He would help them with supplies, and they would provide the labor force. Zhang Yi thought for a moment and realized she was being too pushy. Did she really think he'd be so easily deceived? Lin Yu continued typing, saying that he was probably aware of the public sentiment against him, and that as long as he helped them with supplies, they would remain neutral. Many were currently weighing the pros and cons. He, an intelligent man, surely understood that this couldn't continue for long. Zhang Yi was surprised. Was she trying to threaten him? At that moment he asked, do you mean to say she would attack him if he didn't cooperate? She replied in a voice that she was sure he wouldn't do that, and that the best option for everyone was to fight together. Zhang Yi, smiling, replied that he'd never seen such a confident person before, and Lin Yu replied that it was indeed so. He decided to think about it and give his answer a little later. After the call ended, he looked out the window and wondered if they were all really against him. If they united, there was nothing he could do. And if they attacked simultaneously, what were the chances of them being able to hold out? The people lacked fuel and electricity, so they wouldn't be able to use equipment, and they certainly wouldn't be able to destroy the building with their bare hands. If he persisted, what would they do to him? Would he really have to kill people to cope? If he let things slide, he would definitely get into trouble. So what should he do? At that moment, a new message arrived on his phone from Li Jian, who said they hoped for fruitful cooperation in building a utopia during the doomsday. 5 elderly people lived in building number 18, all of whom had serious health problems due to the cold. Everyone else got along well. He thought the best option under the current circumstances was to work together. They were in dire need of food, and they could provide labor and other resources in exchange for his demands. They would also help coordinate communication between the other buildings. Zhang Yi smiled and replied that, as expected of a financial director, he knew how to maximize profits with minimal costs. What was unknown about building number 18? Zhao turned around, startled, and replied that she'd heard something about a very charismatic man. The people there were united and shared equally. They had practically everything, even up to this point. Zhang Yi suggested that he must have a real talent for management, but if they wanted to survive, relying solely on that was simply foolish. He replied with a message saying he'd consider their proposal. The demands weren't all that difficult, nor were the conditions, but they had 2 options: start a war or make peace. He hugged Zhou from behind and showed her his phone screen, then continued to ponder that killing them all would simply be a waste of his precious ammunition. Many of them held no grudge against him. Who would that affect his mental health? Zhou wondered if it was clear what was going on in his head, and that it was good that he liked her. He asked her what she thought he should choose. She ran away in fear, and replied that if a war broke out, she was sure he could handle it, but if he supplied them with resources, it would be a waste. Zhang Yi wondered if there was a way to kill them all without expending much effort and keeping them safe. Zhao blushed with embarrassment and replied that she didn't know. Maybe it would be enough to simply move to another location. He replied that it was easy to say, but he couldn't make a similar bunker elsewhere. Should he really give up on it? After a while, they lay down in bed, and Joe picked up a bulletproof vest and asked what she should do with it. Johnny replied that she should make fragments of clothing out of it, and that she would be safe. He wrote in the general chat, noting all the group members that they were in a difficult situation. Others wanted to take away their food. They were jealous of their ability to go outside, and they also threatened him, saying they would raise their building to the ground. The guys started discussing among themselves what these bastards were thinking. They needed to fight back. They wouldn't give them a crumb. After all, they'd worked so hard to get it all. There were only 30 or 40 of them. Would they be able to hold out if they came? Zhang Yi replied that they thought they could divide their supplies and hide the tea. That would keep them safe, and they should survive. The guys responded that they should do that, but shouldn't they be able to give it to them? Zhang Yi replied that that was great. Hadn't he blocked that option? How did that happen? A notification came to his phone that Lin Yu was inviting him to join the building owners' meeting. It seemed they had decided to take him on. In this chat, Lin Yu announced that she had invited Zhang Yi here and that they needed to discuss everything. Wang Qian replied that he had heard that he was not in poverty, and that he was the only one of them who lived in complete comfort. Many began discussing that they didn't know what they would have done if he had refused to negotiate. Someone argues that this shouldn't be done, since they created this chat to come to an understanding, not for such discussions. Let Lao Li tell him the terms they'd discussed. They'll discuss everything and outline a plan of action, so to speak. First, if he doesn't accept their terms, he'll become everyone's enemy. Second, he must provide them with resources for survival. In exchange, they won't attack. Third, his snowmobile becomes public property. Everyone will use it in turn, and he's obligated to share all his resources. Zhang Yi was enraged by the terms they'd come up with and, throwing his phone aside, replied, "No, it's easier for him to immediately eliminate them as a potential threat. He needs to think about it. Right, he just needs to trap them." When this realization dawned on him, he was very surprised, and the next day he got ready and laced up his boots. They'd used peace talks as a cover to sniff out his combat power. He needed to surround them and get rid of this trash. When they all arrived, he'd simply throw a grenade at them, and even if they all died, they'd definitely leave him alone. Well, it was time for him to go hunting. Meanwhile, the guy waved his hand and said that Zhang Yi had conveyed this to them. A delegation would be arriving soon, and they should be ready to fight back if necessary. The guys were eating their food, discussing how delicious it was. Following Zhang Yi was the best decision they'd ever made. They will always obey him. When the protagonist found himself among the guys, they asked, "Are these the negotiations he was talking about? Will they be able to return to normal life afterward?" Zhang Yi replied that if the negotiations were successful, food shortages would end, and there would be no more bloody clashes. So for the sake of a bright future, he asks them to work hard today, and victory would be just around the corner. He argued that this was true, and even if they were dead, they would have nothing to worry about. The guys went outside, where there were many snowdrifts, and it was still snowing. They walked one after another, and found themselves in front of a similar group, and Zhang Yi asked, "Are they trying to play a joke on me?" The guys didn't understand why there were so many of them. Zhang Yi shouted into the phone to tell his men that if they wanted to stay alive, they should get out of here. He turned to his uncle and said that there were too many of them, and they needed reinforcements urgently. He told them not to worry, because he would save them. Uncle Yu was walking with his team, and was not far from the guys, where he stood first in line. The guys were discussing whether they hadn't agreed to negotiate. They didn't seem at all inclined to discuss it. They had obviously decided to kill them all. One of the guys asked them to stop panicking, as it wouldn't make them fewer anyway. The guy turned to Uncle Yu and said that there were too many of them. Why did they come here? Do they want to destroy them? Uncle Yu replied that they had nothing to worry about, because their target wasn't them, but Zhang Yi. They wanted to force him to give in to them in negotiations. Besides, didn't he ask them not to worry? The guys replied that everything was correct. Meanwhile, Lin Yu, along with many of her friends, stood in the front lines and watched what was happening. She wondered, who do they think they are? Now, they will see how they handle this situation. They mustn't allow any of them to attack them first. They need to be ready to fight back. The guys were discussing among themselves, and they see this? Their numbers were enough to scare them to death. Zhang Yi probably went to change his pants. How dare he refuse the proposed conditions? Lin Yu suggested taking their time. They could just discuss everything with him and see what he decided. At that moment, one of the guys started shouting, "Are they Zhang Yi's people?" They were waiting for him to talk. Uncle Yu said he was waiting for him. Why weren't they sitting at the table where they were discussing everything? They replied that they considered it impractical for everyone to go together, so they decided to do it this way. Only 5 could enter, and they should get ready, while the rest should stand back. Lin Yu grinned and asked again, "A search? Was it Zhang Yi's idea? And how could they understand that?" This guy still dared to set his own conditions. He really wasn't afraid of death. Zhang Yi wondered if they really thought they could threaten him so easily. Oh well, the cannon fodder had gathered themselves. He answered the phone. Good, he understood everything. The guys asked again. What's he doing? Couldn't he see that all these people were waiting for something? They wouldn't wait long. Uncle Yu replied that everyone understood and that they should wait a little. At that moment, a strange situation developed between them, and no one understood what was happening. Zhang Yi moved closer from behind and realized that this was excellent, and the distance was simply perfect. He suddenly began to whistle, and his enemies turned around in confusion, not understanding what was happening. Zhang Yi replied that it was a small surprise and dropped a grenade on them. When it landed near their feet, no one understood what it was. Then suddenly they realized what it was, and the blast wave threw them far to the side. Many people were destroyed in this pit, and Zhang Yi asked Uncle Yu through his phone if many people were left. Wan Jian turned around, stunned, and didn't know how to react. Uncle Yu shouted, "He's not going to say anything." Wan Jian replied that they were here for negotiations and that was unnecessary. He didn't understand where this guy had come from, or where he'd gotten a rifle and grenades. Zhang Yi replied, "Why did they bring so many people to the negotiations?" He thought they were getting in the way, so he dispersed them. It was almost 2:30 minutes and 5 minutes left. And then, before he could finish his sentence, Lin Yu suddenly started shouting that they were here to establish communication and that he should stop and give them a minute. What floor was he on? It turned out he was on the 30th floor, and Zhang Yi realized he'd have to kill at least 20 people. It wouldn't be easy in this chaos, but he thought he could handle it. He didn't want to waste ammo, and he didn't have many grenades either. When they entered his room, he asked with a smile, "Is that all?" They replied yes. They were representatives and had come here for negotiations. Zhang Yi began to think he'd have to come up with another solution. One of them started saying he knew how dire the situation was, and that they were short of resources. Many had fallen ill or died of the cold. Li Jian continued saying that things couldn't go on like this, and that he wouldn't take them in. They wanted to survive, so they decided to negotiate, and if he could provide everyone with supplies, he'd be right. But before he could finish speaking, Zhang Yi suddenly grabbed his gun, and all the men jumped up, and Wan Jian shouted at him to stop, because if he killed them, more would come. Li Jian suggested they just talk things over, and Zhang Yi asked again, why were they so nervous? The gun was just bothering him, so he decided to put it away. Let them calm down and sit down. They'd continue the conversation. First of all, he wasn't happy with the idea of wasting his resources. He thought the people managing the buildings weren't so stupid. After all, he knew they cared for their people, even during the food shortage, right? He'd set his terms, and if they didn't agree, they'd start a war. First, he agrees to share supplies, but only in reasonable quantities. He doesn't care how they divide them within their buildings. That's up to them. He can only get food for 300 people at most, and that's his limit. Lin Yu screamed, "No, that's too little. There are 76 survivors in her building, plus 20 employees from her company. How will they divide the food among everyone?" She was very angry about this. After that, he asked, "So, is there a need for this chatter?" Suddenly, one of them started shouting at him to slow down, thinking they could discuss everything again. Wan Jian added that it was too little, and besides, how would they explain all this to others? Zhang Yi smiled and asked, "Do they think that providing food for 300 people daily is not enough?" Li Jian shouted at him to give them time to think. Maybe they could discuss other conditions in the meantime. He replied, "Okay, they need to discuss what they'll do. Since they want to achieve stable development, they need to do something, and they can't last long just searching for supplies. Who knows when it might snow, so they need to get to work." When he went out, he found a packet of seeds and thought he could grow grain to provide for himself. Just like their ancestors did, food depends only on their efforts. One of them asked if he'd ever planted anything. Nothing would grow in such cold. Zhang Yi asked again, "What's wrong with the cold? Hadn't they survived? Supplies and fuel might soon run out, and they'll have nothing left. And isn't everyone outside buried in the ground?" Zhang Yi thinks they have a good chance and needs to send workers daily. He needs to see their work, and then he'll provide them with all the materials they need. The quality of the materials will be high, but in the future, he'll supply them with cigarettes, drinks, clothing, and medicine. Jian was surprised. "He has cigarettes?" His friend asked. "Is that in his hand? He hasn't smoked for half a month. He'll soon go crazy. Let him give it to him." Zhang Yi pulled out a pack of cigarettes and the guys took 2. "Let him start smoking," and Zhang Yi asked again, "Do they agree to the terms?" Li Jian waved his hand and said he agreed to everything as long as he could smoke. If he gave them 2 packs a day. Zhang Yi replied that she could give them 1 pack a day and no more. Wan Jian replied, "Okay, so be it, he won." Zhang Yi chuckled and replied that they had reached a compromise in their negotiations. Hadn't they? Awkwardness had arisen between them, and no one knew how to react. Wan Jian was shouting, "What are they waiting for? Let them just do what he says." Li Jian adjusted his glasses and replied that this was too much, and he asked again, "What are they talking about?" They had already stopped wasting precious time, and they couldn't stand such chatterboxes. Isn't it right for them to take Zhang Yi's wishes into account? Li Jian was furious that these two were fawning over him, like it had prolonged their miserable lives. The other man said they couldn't approach this matter so casually, discussing everything again. Wang Jian asked again, didn't they agree to make decisions among the 5 of them? Aren't the others obligated to simply obey? Zhang Yi has his own problems and needs to take everything into account without pressuring anyone. Zhang Yi replied that he had told them, how dare they send people here to attack him? Wang Jian threw up his hands and asked, what's he talking about? Wouldn't they be gambling with their own lives then? He replied that that was the point. They'd need to check something when they got back. Li Jian shouted that they could kill each other, and Zhang Yi shouted for everyone to sit down. Everyone tensed up and sat down at the table, after which Wang Jian asked, what's he doing? Shouldn't he just hold back? Zhang Yi pulled his gun out into the street and realized he couldn't act or anything. He was aiming for ordinary people, and hit the very first person in the team in the head. After that, he started picking them off one by one, and the people realized it was Zhang Yi. He had a sniper rifle, and they needed to run. Zhang Yi asked, does he really think he won't get hurt if he lies down? At that moment, he swung his gun many more times, and the people screamed in pain and terror. Lin Yu and his friends sat in horror when they heard the screams, and Zhang Yi turned around and asked, well, have they thought it all through? Wang Jian replied that he agreed to the terms he had put forward, and the other guy also said he had no objections. Everyone raised their hands, and even Li Jian confirmed his agreement. Zhang Yi smiled and replied, that's great, then they'll start today, and tomorrow he'll let them know when they can come for supplies. He touched Li Jian's shoulder and told him to go back, because he'd done a good job and he'd keep an eye on him, so he shouldn't try to play around with him. When the whole team left the room, the people around realized they were coming. What happened? Where was Zhang Yi? They just walked outside, and the guys realized they'd compromised. Zhang Yi grabbed their shoulders and explained it, and the guys asked how he'd managed to convince them. He shot so accurately, the guys were scared to death. Zhang Yi replied that he had simply intimidated them and would also provide food for 300 of their men in exchange for their labor and cultivation of the land for future crops. The men asked again, but was that really possible? If they gave up all their food, what would they eat? Zhang Yi turned around and asked again, what would they do if they hadn't come to an agreement? Would they prefer to fight 1,000 men? He didn't care, but he wasn't sure they could handle it. They shouldn't worry too much. He would do everything possible to find food and not let them die of hunger. The people began to sob with tears in their eyes, saying how well he was doing in his duties. They knew they hadn't mistaken him. He was a leader worthy of their respect. From that moment on, they fully supported him and all his decisions. Zhang Yi's kindness knew no bounds. After that, Zhang Yi returned to Uncle Yu and asked what was wrong with his face. He scratched his head and replied, nothing, that today was just a strange day, not his style. Zhang Yi replied that cooperating with them was the right decision. He'd originally planned to trap all the leaders. If they lost their leaders, the people would descend into chaos, easily defeated. But only 5 showed up, and killing them wouldn't help. So it was better to compromise and choose the right time to strike. He replied that everything was correct and supported this. And Zhang Yi asked again, did he understand? Uncle Yu replied, not quite, but he was sure he was saying everything correctly. Zhang Yi continued that food supplies were extremely limited. If they distributed them themselves, there would be problems. So there was no need for them to do it themselves. Uncle Yu suggested that they would simply kill each other while dividing up the pie. An excellent move, as expected. Zhang Yi replied that the reason he was confident of victory was because he had enough ammunition. He's not afraid of their firepower, and they're no match for him. They have no food or warm clothing. How can they fight if they have to think about basic survival? Even the world champion would lose to him in the ring after 30 days of starvation, wouldn't he? Uncle Yu asked again, 30 days of starvation? Wouldn't a man die from that? He replied that it was true. How could a bunch of corpses defeat him? These guys weren't idiots at all, and they probably understood what he wanted. But the price wasn't the only thing that interested them. Uncle Yu asked again, so what now? They had their own interests, and they wouldn't rush into them unnecessarily. They would bide their time, like the wisest of ancient emperors. Zhang Yi replied that they certainly wouldn't do anything stupid, and Uncle Yu replied that what he said made sense. But what was the point of farming? In this cold, it was simply useless. Zhang Yi replied that it was done to exhaust them, nothing more. He replied that he understood everything and owed him everything, so he would do everything he said. Zhang Yi asked him to remember to keep everything he told him secret and just follow the plan. They had to be wary not only of enemies outside, there were plenty of them inside the building as well. After some time, he returned home, where Jia was doing the splits and said in surprise that he had returned. How had his negotiations gone? They hugged, and Zhang Yi asked again, was she interested? He picked her up and said that for the next few days she should stay home and not go anywhere, and soon all their troubles would end. He stroked her cheek, which made Zhou blush. The next day, many people came out into the street with shovels and chatted among themselves. They hadn't gathered like this in a long time. They didn't remember seeing such crowds before the disaster. It was time for them to get to work, because the management had said that the more they worked, the more food they would get. The people laughed. They really needed to work hard and start a life as farmers. A bright future awaited them. They had come to a peace agreement, so there would be no bloody squabbles, Only happy days awaited them. At that moment, Wanjian and his friend were smoking off to the side and watching what was happening. Zhang Yi came out to them, and they asked again, had he come for supplies? Could he manage on his own? If not, he could come with him. Zhang Yi replied that they knew he had a snowmobile and it would deliver everything. They should just wait and see for themselves. By the way, no one should relax. He would check on their progress when he returned. What kind of work is this on an empty stomach? Wanjian asked, so where is the snowmobile? He searched everywhere but couldn't find it. His friend asked again, is this a snowmobile? He thought it was a sled. After some time, the protagonist decided he wanted to see because what he was looking for should be here. He entered the room and found a box, realizing it was there. He picked up the vial and thought about how colorless and odorless it was. Perfect for the occasion, and easy to find. Even if it doesn't kill them immediately, it will certainly damage their internal organs, and without proper treatment, they will die anyway. It takes about a quarter of an hour for the medicine to take effect, so he needed to weaken their guard so they'd consume the poison, and then he'd simply send the unwanted ones away, that's all. Without proper clothing and food, they'd all been exhausted long ago. He'd been waiting for this, and they were probably overcome with despair since the promised food still hadn't arrived after such a hard day. When he returned to the room with large bags, everyone started asking where he'd gotten so much food. It was so much, and they'd never seen anything like it. Zhang Yi replied that he'd simply gone a little further than usual. The situation was complicated, so he'd had to take the risk. The guys replied that he was right. Such forays were very risky. It was good that his snowmobile was running. Zhang Yi realized he was well prepared this time, as he hadn't been caught. Now they had to take turns coming up for food. At that moment, he began throwing bags of food at people's feet and shouting for them to begin, asking them not to crowd. He was confident that soon they would be able to lay down their weapons and move on to a brighter future. The people shouted and rejoiced that good days were coming. Finally, they had paid for this at the cost of their own health. Zhang Yi clapped his hands and said that the work would continue tomorrow. They replied that today they would finally get a full night's sleep and decided to return because they were very tired. Zhang Yi watched them go with a smile on his face. When he returned home, Joe took off his jacket and told him everything was ready and that he could shower and go to bed. He undressed and began to bathe, thinking that this couldn't go on for much longer. He would get rid of them and then find a way to get out of this place and start over. When one of the girls returned home, the boys started pushing each other to try the food faster. One of them grabbed the bags, pulled out a pack, and said, "Wow, this boy really kept his promise." People asked the boss if they could have at least one cigarette. Wanjian thought about how he usually went through a pack a day, and if he gave them away, he'd have half left at best. They dreamed of cigarettes and begged him, saying they'd choke, and asked for just one. He replied that these cigarettes were hard to come by and he'd risked his life to get them. After that, he handed each of them a cigarette and said they were brothers, of course, and he would share it with them if they promised to work hard for him in the future. They should go. Everyone would get their share. Everyone lit up right there in the office and was happy. And after a while, they began to eat. After a moment, Wanjian realized that it seemed that this jerk had poisoned the food. But fine. Let the others stay out of the picture and continue working hard. One of the guys approached his girlfriend and told her they no longer had anything to worry about. If they worked hard, they would always have food. She happily replied, yes, they will definitely survive this snowstorm. Surely, it was their parents sending them a blessing from heaven. Everything was fine, and there would be no more cold or murder. The next day, the main characters woke up and heard screams. Hadn't he agreed yesterday? He realized that the process had begun and moved closer to the window to observe what was happening. People were screaming, and where was the food? They'd worked so hard, and there was no food in sight. He'd been fooling around all day, and he still dared demand something from him? Zhou asked again, what happened? What all the noise was about? He repeated, who knows? It was none of their business anyway. The men continued to fight for their lives, digging through the snowy ground. Zhang Yi thought the plan had worked faster than expected. Other groups were short of food, so he asked his uncle to be careful and not get himself into trouble. He asked him not to worry, as he knew how to handle it. The protagonist got on the snowmobile and rode off. He brought back food, and his subordinate said it was truly something, finding food in such conditions. Zhang Yi replied that it was all for their sake. How did they like the quality of the food? He replied that everything was superb. They'd eaten so much yesterday that they'd cried. Zhang Yi realized that they really had eaten everything, and at that moment she shouted, excellent, let them come get some food and enjoy it. Either way, they all faced the same fate. A moment later, people started throwing each other off the balconies, screaming that they were all lying and needed to be captured. They cursed and shouted at each other that this bastard had killed an entire family. How dare he lie? Zhang Yi pretended not to see anything and sang a song while loading his gun. People continued to die falling from tall buildings, and he eagerly awaited the next day. The next day, he went outside and saw many dead people. Not all of them died immediately after the fall. Some were unable to move due to severe injuries and simply froze to death. Apparently, yesterday's battle had been serious. His subordinate asked if they would continue today. Zhang Yi repeated, why not? If he wanted to survive, he would have to work. Otherwise, they would end up like them. When the people saw the corpses, they were stunned with horror and replied that they would do do everything immediately. It seemed none of the other groups had gone out to clear the snow. Should they tell them to go? Zhang Yi asked again. What do you think they care about now? The previous night had marked the beginning of a clash between those in power and the ordinary residents. If they didn't solve the food distribution problem, some of them would soon die. They could kill a ton in one night. The boy realized he'd really decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But before Uncle Yu could finish speaking, Zhang Yi replied that it had nothing to do with them. Maybe it would be better to let them figure it out themselves. He'd sent a message to the group that if he didn't see the fruits of his labor tomorrow, he wouldn't be able to provide them with food or cigarettes. A new day had dawned, and they watched the people toil from the sidelines. Their numbers had already dropped by 1/3, and the effect truly pleased him. Uncle Yu had said that some people don't realize they deserve food too. Why aren't they resisting and fighting for a chance at survival? Zhang Yi asked again. Do you think it's about the rations? It's just that many of them aren't willing to risk even the little they have, and so they'll try to avoid any showdowns at all costs. At that moment, Lin Yu called him over and told him to stop, as she wanted to discuss their partnership again. He was surprised by her appearance and asked, and what should they talk about? Lin Yu said that if they continued like this, sooner or later everything would collapse. No matter how much food he brought, they could still be robbed. There would be even more casualties. He asked, so what? He wanted to see it in his mind, and she suggested a rational solution. He needed to expand his territory. The world had plunged into chaos. The old order was crumbling, and now he was in a position to build his own kingdom. He would be king, and she would help him. What did he think of that? Zhang Yi lost his mind and grabbed her by the shoulders. He asked, is she serious? She replied that this was the only way to maintain their status. Who knows what will happen to them in the future? He replied that she had managed to attract a lot of people to her side, right? Surely many of them had lost loved ones. How did he know he wouldn't become one of them? He hit her and knocked her to the ground, saying he wouldn't become one of her dead. She screamed that she was asking him for this and would do everything herself. He smiled, ignored her, and approached the people who were working. Zhang Yi understood that there were no casualties yet, and they were continuing to work together. Li Jian asked again, why was he there? Zhang Yi was surprised. How did they manage to do this? He asked again, what was he talking about? The protagonist explained that the other communities had been fighting among themselves for a long time, and he wondered how they managed to maintain order. Li Jian replied that he had done nothing of the sort. He had immediately informed everyone of the results of the negotiations, and that no matter how much food there was, they would distribute it equally. Zhang Yi replied that this was smart. That way no one would worry about dying of hunger. Li Jian asked again, wouldn't he want to help them? Zhang Yi apologized, but he couldn't afford it right now. With his abilities, he could easily attract more people who would definitely survive with him. He shouldn't be greedy in such a matter. He couldn't protect everyone anyway. Li Jian suggested that perhaps he knew a way, and Wang Jian also approached him and asked if he was going out on another expedition today. Zhang Yi replied that he would go look for cigarettes and maybe alcohol later, and Wang Jian exclaimed how kind he was. If he needed any help, he should just say so. His friend confirmed that he was their benefactor and promised to always be loyal to him. Zhang Yi hugged them and said that they were now brothers. If they needed anything, they should just ask, and he would take care of it. After a while, he came out with a bag and told them to come back for food one by one. The people asked again, he used to bring cigarettes, right? Could he get them that too? He didn't respond, and the others said he shouldn't play favorites, and they didn't need much, just a pack a day. They really needed it. Zhang Yi was upset and replied okay. He'd try to bring them cigarettes starting tomorrow. After that, the people left and discussed whether Zhang Yi was being too kind to them. Giving them food was already quite a lot, and they were asking him for more. Zhang Yi replied that their demands weren't over the top, so it was okay, and they'd end it there. The guys were surprised that they worked so hard and someone else was getting all the privileges. Zhang Yi returned home and lay down on the couch, saying that time was running out. The number of victims of the internal conflict was around 400, and waiting for them to ease up even more would definitely backfire. He decided to do it tomorrow, and when he returned to the store, he put a few loaves of bread in his bag, saying that he would be kinder to him and hoped their last meal would be filling. Food, alcohol, and cigarettes, the service is top-notch. But is that really all? Is it his imagination, or is everything going too smoothly? After all, maybe all the previous places weren't their fault, and maybe he's worrying for nothing? No, he shouldn't stop. He needs to be safe. No matter what tricks they resort to, they're nothing compared to true strength. When Zhang Yi returned, his subordinates announced their arrival. He told them to wait here, and he'd tell them to go down and get everything. When the people approached him, he smiled and said they could sort through the packages. The protagonist thought his plan was about to succeed. When the people crowded around, Zhang Yi announced the 21st task. He pulled a package out of his bag when suddenly one of the guys pulled out his firearm and shouted at him to stop. Zhang Yi turned in surprise, and at that moment Uncle Yu, who had been hit by the bullets, protected him. He caught his body, and at that moment, his own men attacked him from behind. He abruptly drew his firearm and said it was a mistake and he wouldn't do it again. They all had to die. He shot at everyone around him, and the fleeing men couldn't understand where he got such a gun. They should run away. But those people were killed moments later. And when the protagonist had dealt with them all, He dropped his weapon and thanked his uncle for taking the bullet for him, and now he could avenge him and kill them all. Wanjan said they weren't with them, it wasn't their concern. His friend also swore it had nothing to do with him, so he shouldn't kill them. Zhang Yi asked again, so what? He started shooting, and when he killed them, only Lin Yu remained, screaming that she really didn't know. She had a daughter, and she had to live and wait for her. Zhang Yi didn't listen to her and shot her in the head, apologizing and saying he couldn't let something like this happen again. When he killed everyone, he suddenly turned around and asked Uncle Yu if he was alive. The protagonist took out a syringe of adrenaline and injected it directly into his uncle's heart. The onlookers decided to go help him. They took a stretcher and dragged Uncle Yu inside. Zhang Yi told them to carry him to him and to be careful. When his wife saw Uncle Yu, she started screaming, "What's wrong? He shouldn't have gotten hurt. How could he beat her if he couldn't be sure of his own safety? If he left them, how would she and their daughter survive? Had he really decided to prove his devotion by shielding him from bullets and leave her a widow with a child?" She turned to Zhang Yi and asked if her husband would be okay. He replied that there was nothing to worry about, he would do everything to save him. His girlfriend worked as a doctor at a major hospital, and she would get him back on his feet. Lemay replied that if he died, she wouldn't be able to live, and asked him to save him for the sake of their child. Zhang Yi, seeing the child, asked again, "What? They're trying so desperately to save him, and she's burying him?" Lemay replied no, she wanted him to live a long, happy life. With tears in her eyes, she reflected that she had a long-term meal plan. She would do everything to ensure his survival. Zhang Yi asked her to return to the apartment because he needed surgery to remove the bullet, and she couldn't help him here. She screamed, "No," he said. He needs someone with him, and she won't leave him. At that moment, Uncle Yu made strange noises, and a moment later, Zhang Yi led her up to his apartment. Lemay thought that finally, she'd long dreamed of being in warmth again. There was heating, fresh produce, and a fireplace. She wanted to enjoy all of that too. She immediately entered the kitchen and began using the appliances, much to Zhou and Zhang Yi's surprise. Lemay asked if he had any powdered milk. Zhang Yi frowned and angrily asked, "What did she say?" She replied that the baby was thirsty, and that this child was dear to her husband. He told her to go and help, otherwise he would throw her out. When Zhang Yi magically prepared a place for the operating table, she asked him what he had just done. Zhang Yi ignored her and turned to Zhou, begging her to save him at any cost. Let her tell him how the medicine and equipment were needed, and he would do everything to obtain them. She replied that she would do everything in her power, and when she opened the body, Zhang Yi asked, "Is there any hope?" She replied that the prognosis was bleak. If the bullet had pierced his internal organs, saving him would be practically impossible. Lemay started screaming, asking what they would do if he left them. Zhang Yi asked her to shut up and not interfere, choosing the situation. If something went wrong, she would be held responsible. She wiped away her tears and replied that she should leave then, since she couldn't help. She didn't know how to treat illnesses or save lives, and staying here would be a waste. Limay's only thought was that there was so much food here, plus furniture with hot water. Who would want to leave? Zhang Yi told her that her husband's life depended on this operation, and she would have to stay to help care for him. Even if she can't do anything, the best she could do for Uncle is be there. Isn't he right? He pulled out a gun and pointed it at her, saying that everything was decided. She should stay here and he would leave. After some time, Zhang Yi came out to the people and they began shouting that they had nothing to do with the attackers. They knew nothing and were loyal to him. Zhang Yi put up his hand and said that because of this attack, his uncle was seriously injured and they must pay for it. Tonight they will attack them. The people asked again, will they be the only ones attacking? But won't they be able to do it? Who knows what they could be planning? Zhang Yi replied that there was no need to worry about it because he would deal with them and they would keep an eye on the building. If they saw someone jumping from the building, they should kill them. When the protagonist reached building number 21, he ordered it to be surrounded, and the people realized that it was Zhang Yi and his men. They clutched their heads and began to tremble, saying it was over. They would all die. How could they fight him? He was a real devil. Another guy asked, what was she afraid of? This was their territory. Even if he tried to break in, they would fight him back. Zhang Yi told them to watch the windows so no one could escape through them. His subordinates didn't understand what he was planning or where he was going. When Zhang Yi entered, he realized there was no one there, which was good. He used his magic to lift several logs and douse them with gasoline, and the guy realized what he was doing. Zhang Yi kept saying he was almost out of fuel. One click of the lighter and they could leave. It was so cold today. Could he really watch people die of cold? He even lit a fire for them, so they wouldn't forget to thank him later. At that moment, he threw the lighter into the spilled fuel, and the building began to burn from the first floor on. The flames were spreading everywhere, and when Zhang Yi came out to his men, he said it was their turn. The house was already filled with smoke, and the people inside realized they had set it on fire. They needed to open the windows quickly. There was smoke everywhere. The windows were frozen, and people couldn't get out. The guys shouted not to waste their energy, because if they broke the glass, the smoke would only get worse, and they needed to get out. Zhang Yi thought that when he was in college, they used to have campfire get-togethers, and this was very similar to what happened then. But now the flames were much more dangerous. At that moment, people gradually began jumping out of the windows, completely engulfed in flames. They thought the building had turned into a trap, and they had no choice but to die inside or outside. Everyone started jumping straight to the ground into the snow, screaming that they were burning hot and asking for help. But Zhang Yi's subordinates swung at these people, cutting them down with daggers. It looked disgusting to everyone. The guy said that before, she would have been afraid to kill even a chicken. But now look at what she'd done. The girl replied that everyone was working so hard for Zhang Yi and she couldn't stand by. At that moment, another man fell burned, and she said that it was just another one and that they should leave it to her. Zhang Yi smiled as he looked at her and said that the fire was so beautiful. It would be great if they did it again. People from the neighboring building discussed what they should do while watching what was happening. If this was Zhang Yi's tactic, then all they could do was wait for their deaths. Another man asked him if he was going to fight. Wang Qian had carefully calculated his attack but still suffered defeat, so why should they risk their lives? They thought that he wouldn't kill everyone. He wasn't crazy. After all, they weren't involved in the attack and nothing would happen to them. At that moment, Zhang Yi returned and told everyone to go forward. They were going to the next building and he proposed killing them all. The people from building number 26 shouted that they had nothing to do with this and that there was no need to kill good people. Zhang Yi replied that there was no need to kill good people. If they had survived this far, they probably had several lives, just like cats. Whether they were good or not was irrelevant. He would kill them all. At that moment, he did the same to this building and set it on fire. The people understood that he was completely serious. The buildings that had participated in the attack had been burned. Okay, killing them all in one night was a bit much, but something had to be done. Zhang Yi shouted at everyone not to worry. He only wanted revenge and would not kill innocents. He asked his loyal comrades not to be afraid. The people calmed down and realized that this was wonderful because he had no intention of killing them, and he had no reason to take revenge on them. There must have been so many murders, and they didn't believe he would kill them all. Zhang Yi said they were done for the day and it was time to return. His subordinates asked them to take their time, as they wanted to warm up a bit. The cold was waiting for them at home again, and they wanted to sit by the fire a little longer. Zhang Yi replied, "Let them do as they wish." They decided to add more wood as the fire was dwindling and threw a man in. The protagonist's subordinates were killed, and he thought, the dead are dead, so why did they rise? He treated them well after all. He took out their phone and went into the chat archive, and with a smile he realized that this was the reason. When he returned home, he went into the girl's operating room and realized that everything seemed fine. Uncle Yu was breathing, and he told Zhao that it was a great job. She replied that she was glad she could help him. At that moment, Limei approached him and said that they hadn't eaten anything for the last 24 hours. Could he bring something for her and her child? Zhang Yi thought that she really did like to cross the line, as usual, and said that they could eat it since they were dear uncles. He couldn't let them starve. He threw the pack on the floor and she asked again, how did he do it? Was there nothing else? She saw eggs in the kitchen and chicken bones in the trash can. At that moment, Zhang Yi was stunned along with Zhou, and turning around, he said that there were only noodles, so if she didn't want them, then she shouldn't eat them. She replied that she didn't say she didn't want them, she just asked, and noodles were an excellent option. When Zhou returned to the room, she sat up in bed and said that she needed to rest. She had been having quite a few problems lately. Zhang Yi said everything was fine and took off her shoes. He asked how Uncle Yu was, how long would it take him to recover, and would he even be able to stand? Zhao replied that the wounds were quite serious and he had lost a lot of blood, and they couldn't give him a transfusion, so she wasn't sure she could save him. He replied that he wouldn't go into detail about the blood, so how did she save him? She replied that just as his pulse was about to stop, something happened to his body. It was as if his body began to recover on its own. The bleeding subsided, and the wound became smaller. At that moment, Zhang Yi realized, so that's how it is. The culprit of the disaster was the gamma rays from space that imbued him with these powers. Perhaps he wasn't the only one exposed to them, and perhaps there were other people with superpowers. Uncle Yu was in exactly the same state he was in before his death, and apparently this awakened his power. Is the near-death state a prerequisite for awakening? In that case, saving people from death now? If not for him, Uncle Yu would have already died. He made sure to tell her to give him muscle relaxants or sedatives. It wouldn't affect his health, but they needed to keep him under control. Zhou asked again, has he developed powers like his? Zhang Yi replied that it was entirely possible. He had never encountered anything like this before. If he fell into a rage after waking up, he wouldn't leave a brick in the house. Zhou said it's not difficult. She asked to leave it to her. MC got out of bed and said she's tired today. She needs to go to bed early. Zhou asked, what about Uncle Yu? Should she let Li Mei take care of him? Will she be able to? Zhang Yi replied, although she's vile, she's not stupid. She understands perfectly well that if something happens to Uncle Yu, he'll kick her out. No need to worry about it. Zhou said he's right. MC left the room and called out to Miss Shea. He pointed to the room and said that now she can live in the room with her uncle and look after him at night. She replied, okay, then she'll go. Zhang Yi frowned and thought he was so busy that he forgot about something important. It's time for him to deal with the traitors and prepare. After a while, in the corridor of building 25, MC broke down the door with a police shield and Yuqin ordered him to die. She dropped the knife and fell to the floor, and the MC said, they haven't seen each other for a long time. Fan Yuqin. No wonder she's still alive. He knew. She screamed loudly. Jiang Yi, why didn't he die? Why? This bunch of trash can't even kill him. This is a waste of time. The MC asked. Does she think she could kill him by secretly plotting a rebellion? Yuqin screamed. This is all his fault. He should have agreed. But he made his choice. Jiang Yi swung his stick and said, he doesn't have time to mess with her. He hit her in the leg and a loud scream rang out. He grabbed her by the hair and she begged him to spare her. She's begging him to let her go. The MC pulled her out of the window and said, she deserved what will happen to her today. He let go of her hair and Yuqin flew down, screaming no in a drawn-out voice. She fell in the snow, and Jiang Yi, with a slight mockery, told her to thank him for such an easy death. The next day, Zhao said that the recovery was going very well, 10 times faster than that of ordinary people. MC replied happily. He understood. He told her to be sure to take good care of him so that he would recover. Zhao gave Uncle Yu an injection and they headed for the exit. Lemay said, Jiang Yi, she forgot to take the charger with her. Could he bring it? The diapers are there too. MC thought. He remembered hearing somewhere that people in a coma hear everything. He smiled and replied, he had urgent things to do. Once he's done, he'll help her. He thought, it's time for him to get rid of this annoying person. After all, there's not much left. He sees no point in continuing to waste resources. Outside, MC said, they're done for today. They'll discuss the rest later. Xu Hao noticed him and followed him. Jiang Yi turned around and asked, what's wrong? Xu Hao waved his hand and told him not to misunderstand. He has important information for Brother Zhang. MC asked, what kind of information? He wondered what else could have happened that was interesting, other than what he had done. Xu Hao said, Brother Zhang, has he heard about the hideout of Wang Simon, the son of the richest man in their city, on which he spent a whole billion? MC asked, does he know where it is? Xu Hao pointed to the side and said, it's too crowded here. He suggested they talk elsewhere. After a while, MC said, it's clean here. He told him to tell him everything in detail. Xu Hao grinned and replied, the hideout is on the territory of the Yunke estate. The price of the territory exceeds 250 million. Jiang Yi said thoughtfully, if it's really there, then he truly deserves the title of richest man. But why is he telling him about this? Xu Hao hit his chest and said, he's telling him this to prove his loyalty. He wants to destroy this shelter with him. MC smiled and asked, does he think he's that stupid? Does he think he'll believe it so easily? And do they have enough strength to destroy a shelter of this level? Xu Hao said he knows where this place is, but he can't do it alone. In fact, he found out about it, so he contacted him. He offered to lure him into a trap to steal their supplies and snowmobile. Jiang Yi began to get more and more irritated, and the veins appeared on his face. Xu Hao screamed, but he refused. He would never do that. Jiang Yi asked, how will he prove that he's not trying to deceive him now? He took out a gun and said, he'll shoot him right now. Xu Hao fearfully asked not to kill him. Not to kill him. He's telling the truth. He just needs to believe him. MC fired at the wall, and Xu Hao fell to his knees. He got scared and asked him again not to kill him. He's telling the truth. Jiang Yi asked, is that so? Then he needs to give him a good reason to prove he hasn't switched sides. Xu Hao replied that he had seen what he was capable of. His chances of surviving with him were much higher. Even if he went to this guy's hideout, he wouldn't last long. In the past, it was like he was his slave. It was hard for him to restrain himself all the time. He even had to put girls under his wing. He had to act as a pimp more than once. It happened all the time. He grabbed his head and said that it was because of him that he had become a laughingstock for the local rich people. He would take revenge on him anyway, even if he refused to help him. MC asked if he agreed. What would his help consist of? Xu Hao replied that they could take advantage of their acquaintance with Simon. He will pretend that he is deceiving him, and he will open the door for them himself. And with his abilities, killing him will not be difficult. MC asked, what about the security inside the shelter? How many weapons do they have? Xu Hao frowned and said, before he tells everything, he must promise that he will cooperate with him and that he will provide him with food and clothing in the future. Otherwise, he will not say anything. Jiang Yi smirked and asked, he will not say anything, and what use will he be to him then? Xu Hao screamed loudly, it does not matter. He will not say anything, even if he kills him. He knows that he gets rid of people if they lose value in his eyes. Information about the shelter is his only hope for survival. Jiang Yi removed the gun from his head and said, he really is smart. He will agree to his terms if he agrees to his. Xu Hao screamed, okay, let him talk. MC said, first, he should tell him as much about this shelter as possible, especially about their security measures. Xu Hao replied, he had been there several times, so he knew everything. Jiang Yi said, second, he needed him to help him kill someone. Xu Hao replied, no problem. Brother Zhang, he can kill whoever he wants himself. Why does he need him? MC replied, it was a bit problematic for him to deal with one person. In any case, let him wait for news from him. And lastly, he told him to go up. He would bring him everything he needed. After a while, MC entered the room, and Xu Hao looked at him and thought, a suitcase? What's in it? Devices for special agents? Jiang Yi crouched down and opened the suitcase, said he thought he had figured it out a bit. He would like to continue acting anonymously, but he would have to reveal his trump card. Xu Hao thought, of course. He is as accurate as a god, and he kills without batting an eye. He's probably some kind of retired hitman. He thought happily, this is a real boss. With this, He'll definitely survive this apocalypse. MC took a syringe out of his suitcase and said, when he was a mercenary, he often had to catch problematic prisoners. That's why he has his own methods of dealing with such guys. He held it to Shuhao's face, and he screamed in fear. Zhang Yi, what is he doing? Zhang Yi replied, this is a poison that they usually use. An attack will occur a week after it enters the body. Without an antidote, death is inevitable. No need to worry. When they destroy their shelter, he will give him the antidote. Shu Hao fearfully asked him not to do it. MC injected the medicine into his neck and said, now he has him on the hook. No need to panic. It won't work before it's supposed to. He wants them to trust each other. If he dies, then he must too. He waved his hand and told him to go. He will receive his instructions later. Shu Hao said he understood. He will contact Simon as soon as possible. MC looked after him and thought, he got it. He didn't see through him. The poison is just a cover. This injection is methylene blue. It is used to treat methemoglobinemia, but an excess amount really does cause side effects, similar to poisoning. But since he trusted him, the likelihood of betrayal is much less. He left, and after a while in the room with Uncle Yu, he thought, there's not much time to show off when you're dying. He entered the room and said, Uncle Yu, they'll wake up. He scared the shit out of him. He's glad he's okay. Uncle Yu said, fortunately he has a doctor, otherwise he wouldn't have survived. He doesn't know what's going on outside now. MC interrupted him and said, everything is fine. He needs to concentrate on recovering. He'll take care of the rest. Lemay said, Zhang Yi, he's done so much for her husband. She doesn't even know how they can thank him. From now on, they owe him everything. Zhang Yi replied, earlier, Miss Xie was talking about how he should be responsible for her family. Uncle Yu said, Zhang Yi, it's him. Lemay smiled and said, Zhang Yi, he promised. She was glad he brought this conversation back up. He smiled and said, of course. She handed him Tangbao and said, great, she'll go get her things then. Let him keep an eye on her and keep the door open. MC smiled and said, what is she saying? Does he really look like that kind of person? And Uncle Yu is still here. Would he dare? Lemay got dressed and said at the door, great, she will be back as soon as possible. She went out and thought with a smirk on her face, since he now cares about them, there is no longer a reason for him to let her in. At that moment, Zhang Yi sent a message to Shu Hao. The man went out. He needs to be dealt with. MC poked Tang Bao in the cheek with his finger and thought, he wanted to get rid of her too, but he could not accept this. He will just find her a new family. Lemay walked to the door and thought, it is so warm in Zhang Yi's house. She must stay there so that she and the child can survive. She opened the door and saw Shu Hao, who swung his weapon and attacked her. She widened her eyes in fear, and he said not to blame him. She herself was to blame for everything. He sat on top of her and hit her again. Shu Hao said she must die. He wrote a message. It's done. When will he get the supplies? MC read the message and said he'd thought about it and decided to let them live here. He'll come back when he gets better and the baby grows up. Uncle Yu screamed, this is too much. He doesn't have endless supplies either. If there are 3 extra mouths to feed in the house, then the amount of coal for heating will have to be increased. MC suggested he not talk about it. They'll talk about it later. At that moment, Tangbao started crying, and MC looked at her in surprise. Zhang Yi started running back and forth and asking why she was crying. Uncle Yu replied he didn't know. Usually Shay Lemay looks after her. MC gave the child to Zhou and asked to try to calm her down. She replied she doesn't know how to handle children either. MC asked if maybe she needs to change her diaper. Zhou replied, definitely. MC threw her the package and went into Uncle Yu's room. He asked, Uncle, doesn't he feel any changes in his body? It's like something's wrong now. Uncle Yu replied, he has absolutely no strength, and the wounds are itchy. Zhang Yi said that means his wounds are healing. This is normal. Uncle Yu asked again, is it really? But he feels like something is wrong. MC cleared his throat and asked him to wait. And why is Sister Shai still not here? Maybe something happened to her? Uncle Yu put his hand on him and asked Zhang Yi to quickly go and check. This can't be allowed. Zhang Yi asked Zhou to take care of them, and he will go check. MC changed into equipment and sent a message to everyone. He asks everyone to gather in room 3001 on the 13th floor. He will distribute supplies and they will discuss a few matters. Everyone needs to come in order of priority. Zhang Yi said that if they don't want to die, they should just stay at home. After defeating the rest of the buildings, the final say on all matters will always be theirs. People gathered in room 1301 and started talking among themselves. They need to support Zhang Yi. Then he will provide them with food and can guarantee their safety. That will be right. They think he will agree. After all, he thinks he won't want to lose his status. MC overheard the conversation and thought how they are all afraid of imminent death. He opened the door and threw several grenades inside. People looked at it with puzzlement, after which there was a loud explosion. MC went inside and said, that's not bad. A man was sitting near the wall and asking. They helped him. Why? Why did he decide to kill them? MC pointed a gun at him and asked. They helped him. It was he who let them live. He smiled. And after a while he came out and said, it's done. He frowned and thought all the enemies from his past life, except Shu Hao, they were killed by him. He only had 5 survivors left. From now on, no one can threaten him anymore. That's where he finished. Now he needs to catch Wang Simon. Let her rest in peace. Fool. Zhang Yi entered the room and said, Uncle Yu, he has bad news for him. Sister Xie. Uncle Yu asked, Xie Lemay, what's wrong with her? MC slammed his hand on the wall and said, the neighbors conspired to get rid of them. Their target, his house and his supplies. He eliminated 2 of them on the spot, but someone managed to slip away. Uncle Yu burst into tears, and MC told him not to worry, he would take revenge on them for what they did. Uncle Yu slammed his fist on the bed and screamed, "Horror! It's all his fault!" MC said, "It's not his fault. It's better to let him blame him for not noticing in time." He looked at the hole in the bed and thought, his strength has really increased. It keeps growing. Zhang Yi touched him with his hands and told him not to worry. He will make them regret everything. Uncle Yu said, "They deserve to die. They did so much for them, and they repay them like this?" MC said, "It's his fault. He didn't think they would do this." "Okay, no need to be upset. They'll find him a new beauty." Uncle Yu said, He prefers someone mature." MC replied, "No problem. He'll find the perfect candidate." Joe ran into the room and screamed, "Zhang Yi, she's still crying. What should I do?" MC looked at Tangbao and said, "She must be hungry." Joe punched him and said, "What is he thinking? She's not nursing." MC said, "They're really not ready for children. They need to find someone who can take care of her. They need to find a family and send her to them. They will provide everything she needs. That's all." Joe said, "Then we need to start looking for a family." After a while, Zhang Yi was walking down the street, holding Tangbao in his arms. The man asked, "Zhang Yi, has he decided to finish them off?" MC fired into the air and screamed, "Li Jian, let him come out." Jian came out into the street and said, "He is listening to him." Zhang Yi asked, "Isn't he afraid that he will kill him?" Li Jian said, "He is afraid, but it is pointless. He doesn't think he came to kill them. He came alone and with a child in his arms. He thinks he wouldn't kill them, hiding behind a child." MC said, "But he said that he is a smart guy. He came to give him this child. They have a lot of people." Li Jian answered, "Right. He wants to find a wet nurse for him?" Zhang Yi said, "Yes. Now they will be engaged in raising her, and in exchange, he will not touch them." He held out his backpack and said, "Here are diapers, powdered milk, and some food. He knows what will happen if they don't cope with this task." Li Jian said not to worry. They will take care of the baby and will not let anything happen to her. He handed the child to the girl, and Zhang Yi asked how many people they had left. Li Jian answered, 66 people. MC asked, "How do they plan to survive?" "He won't feed them." Li Jian replied, "They'll manage. They somehow survived this far." He always believed that everything would be fine for them. As long as they are alive, there is hope. Zhang Yi said, "In fact, solving the food issue is not that difficult. There is that building that he burned down. There is plenty of food there." Li Jian said, "No, they will not go there. If they do, the same fate awaits them. It is better to preserve humanity and die with dignity. In that case, their death will not be as sad." MC thought, even now there are people who have remained true to their beliefs. Now, standing in front of him like this, he said, frankly, he admires. Li Jian smiled and said, "Thank you. But he admires more. He was able to make the lives of many people much better, even in the face of a disaster. He is far from him. Zhang Yi, he has a small request." MC cried out sharply, "Stop. He knows what he wants." Li Jian spread his hands and asked why. After all, he managed to get food in large quantities before, and the number of people has decreased significantly. Thanks to his abilities, he helped his people survive. MC started to leave and said to forget about it. Everyone has to suffer. He is not a god to help everyone. Li Jian asked, "So what? Most people now only care about food. No one wants to fight. What is the best thing to do?" Zhang Yi left and said, "In these difficult times, it is better to care only about yourself." He is not building castles in the air. His ultimate goal is to live comfortably. He threw several bags in his direction and said, "This is a parting gift. He needs to accept this. In this world, you can only count on yourself." He managed to touch him. He proved that even in difficult times, there are still kind people. He will give them a chance. Let them try to grow these seeds for food. This is normal. He needs to do everything in his power. The guy picked up the bags and asked, "Can this survive in such a low temperature?" Professor J, a teacher at the agricultural college, ordered them to harvest it. If they plant this, they will no longer have to worry about food. Li Jian asked, "Mr. J, will he be able to grow this? Is it possible in this temperature?" The professor replied, "If there is a chance, they should take it. No matter how illusory the hope, they must try." After a while, MC stretched and said, "Finally, the problems are over. All that remains is to capture a new base." Joe asked, "Is he finished?" He answered, "Yes. He is terribly hungry." She took off her robe and said to give her a minute. What would he like to try? MC came up behind her and hugged her. He said, "His cook is so cute." Didn't she guess? Joe asked embarrassedly, "What was he doing?" "Uncle was still here." Zhang Yi said, "It's okay. The soundproofing here is great. He won't hear them." Joe said, "She needs to make dinner." "Can't he wait?" MC replied, "They'll just do it, and that's it." In the morning, MC was sitting on the bed and reading messages. He received a message. "Brother Zhang," he talked to them. "When are they leaving?" MC told him to come to his apartment. He thought, he can't wait any longer. Xu Hao entered the apartment, and MC waved his hand and told him to sit down. They won't talk in a hurry. Xu Hao sat on the floor and asked to let them talk about their conversation with Simon. Zhang Yi said, "No need. Let him just give him his cell phone." Xu Hao asked fearfully, "What? A cell phone?" MC answered, "Yes, he will look at their correspondence himself." Zhang Yi told him to give him the phone. He is not hiding anything from him, right? Xu Hao answered, "Of course not." Zhang Yi put a gun to his head and asked, "Doesn't he understand nicely?" Xu Hao said, "Brother Zhang, no need to shoot. No need. He said something bad about Simon, but he did it so that he would believe him." MC took the phone away and said, "Stop talking." "So they have been texting for half a month already." He read the messages. "This idiot acts so arrogant just because he has a gun in his hand. Why does he live in such a cool apartment? He is so cruel that he killed dozens of people. It will not be so easy to deal with him. Zhang Yi is strong and capable. They can defeat him if they work together. Zhang Yi showed the screen of these messages and asked, "And how will he explain this?" Shu Hao fearfully asked to listen to him. After all, he gave him an injection. If he dies, he will not survive. He did this to make him believe that he is on the same side. He swears that if suddenly he has bad intentions, he will die in terrible agony. MC said he doesn't care, even if he gets struck by lightning. He frowned and thought, in this correspondence, he did not reveal his true firepower. Wang Simon only knows that he has a lot of supplies, a snowmobile, and that his apartment is well protected. We need to use this to trap him. Excellent. Zhang Yi said to tell him more about this shelter, especially about the defenses and weapons, as much detail as possible. Shu Hao replied, he heard that it is built from missile materials. It is difficult to penetrate even with a nuclear warhead. You can try to break through with the help of a well-armed crowd to draw the enemy into a long battle. There are no heavy weapons there, but there are gas sprayers. Flamethrowers are installed at the entrance, the temperature of which reaches almost 2,000 degrees at the moment of launch. MC thought, since his target, his supplies and snowmobile, he will definitely try to kill him. He said, well, then he needs to choose the right time. If he is caught, that will be the worst outcome. He doesn't think his life is important to him. The biggest threat is the trap at the entrance. Shu Hao said, exactly. They can pretend to catch him and get through. Zhang Yi said he will pretend to be affected by the gas. That way, they will bypass the trap at the entrance and kill him. Shu Hao said, yes, that's what he meant. MC said, when they get there, he will do everything to kill him. He thought, it seems to him better not to tell him that he has a gas mask for now. He said that it would be great if there was a way to solve all this at once, and then an idea occurred to him. How come he hadn't thought of this before? In space, time is static. He previously viewed this space solely as a warehouse, but it could be used in a real fight. Wouldn't this be a powerful ace up his sleeve? If he could unlock its potential, the reward would be worthy. He waved his hand at the guy, telling him to go back to his place and wait for news. He would contact him in a couple of days. He grabbed his leg and began to beg him. He could wait, but the poison in his system could not. He asked what he was afraid of. He had told him that it needed a week for it to take effect. He shouldn't worry. A couple of days won't solve anything. He hesitantly said that he would wait then, and when Zhang Yi walked him out the door, he asked him to be sure to contact him. After that, MC thought, in the future, he should find time to develop his abilities. Maybe his talent isn't limited to firearms? Now he needs to think about how to use space in his fight with Simon. Some time passed, and he lit a fire in the house to see if he could absorb the flames spewing from the flamethrowers with space. Theoretically, it was entirely possible. He successfully drew the fire into space and thought, since it was in a stable state, maintaining constant kinetic energy would make this trick quite feasible, and then he could turn those flames against them. He tested it and was glad that it worked. Space has so many uses, it's a real godsend. Now he needs to practice. In the future, any attacks against him will be useless. But what if he uses this skill against people? He'd only tried it with fish before. Apparently he'd have to find a victim for his experiment. So, he went to the man and told him that being kicked out into the street by neighbors who wanted to confront him was bad, of course, but possible. He threw him a stick and told him to attack him. If he hit him even once, he would reward him with a piece of bread. He hesitantly took the stick, then rushed to attack, and then MC extended his hand towards him and began to suck him into his space. The man was scared. He tried to run away, but his hands were already sucked in. In the end, he did not succeed and the space completely absorbed him. Zhang Yi entered there after him, and found that he was frozen in the same position in which he entered. It seems that living people, when entering another space, fall into a state of complete immobility. He tried to touch and move him, but nothing worked. His breathing and heartbeat also stopped. But what will happen to him after he leaves? He decided to test it and threw him out of his space. The man caught his breath and said that he almost died, and MC noted with a smile that it was still affecting him. After some time, he really will die. What is he feeling now? His face broke out in a cold sweat. He caught his breath and told him that he felt like he was in a huge white cloud where all the trash was dumped. He felt like he had been there for an eternity. Perhaps this was too strange, he must just be hallucinating. Zhang Yi grinned. He understood everything. The flow of time in different dimensions is many times slower than outside, which means the longer a living being is in another space, the greater the likelihood of a mental breakdown. Since people in this state cannot actively move, what will happen if he gets rid of a body part? He mercilessly cut off his finger. The man screamed loudly in pain, and MC remarked that it was all quite interesting. If you cause pain to the physical body, will the person leave the space? He told him that they would continue as soon as he treated the wounds. This time he started to get something. After a couple of experiments, Zhang Yi received enough data and also learned a lot about this space. In exchange, he fed the poor guy. There are certain restrictions on resource collection. You can't collect anything too large or living people. His power opens a channel between their world and other dimensions, allowing him to adjust his attack vector. Now he knows what to do with Simon. He approached the guy and thanked him for his help, to which he replied with a smile that he was grateful for the food. Immediately after, he swung his knife sharply, cutting his neck, and he fell, bleeding. MC said that he no longer needed him, so it was time for him to go to the next world, and he, looking at his hand, thought, is he finally dying? He broke into a smile. He could finally escape this cruel world. John Yi left the apartment. In the next few days, he needed to find a couple more test subjects. If he prepared in advance, he would definitely be safe. 3 days passed. He called Shu Hao and warned him about leaving, but he continued to whine that he felt like he was dying. MC took a closer look at him. Indeed, he still looked sickly lately, even though he was eating normally. Psychosomatics must be a really strong thing. He said that he would first inject him with an antidote, which would temporarily alleviate the symptoms, and he immediately rolled up his sleeve, asking him to do it quickly. He decided to scare him and said that it would alleviate his symptoms, but he would still die in 5 days, so he could only pray that everything went smoothly, otherwise it would be the end for both of them. As soon as the injection was given, Shu Hao immediately perked up and told him not to worry. He would not gamble with his own life. He would follow him, no matter what. He took out his phone and made a call, and John Yi, with a smirk in his mind, called him a good boy. As soon as everything was ready, MC began to pack his things. Joe noticed this and asked where he was going. Aren't all their problems solved? He told her that he was going to a better place and asked her not to ask unnecessary questions. He would tell her everything himself when the time came. He left enough food for her and Uncle Yu, enough for half a month. This was in case something happened to him. She hugged him tightly, not wanting to let go, and asked, he wasn't going to get involved in something dangerous, was he? He smiled and asked her not to worry. He never did anything he wasn't sure about. He was more afraid of death than anyone else, so he wouldn't let anything bad happen. But he liked to prepare for everything in advance. He kissed her, then walked out the door, and lastly told her that he had an important meeting today. When he returned, they would continue. She said goodbye to him and slowly slid down the wall to the floor, very worried about him. Together with Shu Hao, he went outside, and before letting him get on the snowmobile, he decided to tie his hands. He asked him in confusion why he didn't believe him. After all, they were on the same side, and he had poison in him. He replied that there was no reason for that, it just made him feel better. And when they got to Simon, it would look more convincing if he was tied up. Shu Hao obediently held out his hands to him. He tied them, and then they set off. He immediately asked if he had a spare helmet. The wind was hitting his face painfully. He told him to be patient for a little while. The more miserable he looked, the better. Soon they reached an area where only villas were located. John Yi stopped and looked around. Mountains and rivers were everywhere. It was immediately obvious that the location was chosen by experts, and the villa was much more luxurious than the others. Thanks to the landscape, this place is an ideal shelter, and there is much less snow here. He said that he thought the cataclysm would be fair to people of any class, but even the heavens indulge the rich. Shu Hao asked, so what? Compared to him, their lives were very miserable. He told him to stop flattering him, let him get off the snowmobile, and show them the way. He obeyed him and asked why they didn't go. It was also much more convenient. He told him not to ask questions. Meanwhile, a resident of one of the villas saw a snowmobile outside the window and immediately thought that, in the current conditions, it was a necessary tool for collecting supplies. The fuel was almost out. Her neighbors were in the same situation. They could only hope that someone would help them. She resolutely headed for the exit, because if she wanted to win, she would have to take a risk. Time passed. Shu Hao brought John Yi to the villa, and he ordered him to come and open the door, threatening him with a gun. He got scared and asked him not to worry so much. He just needed to wait a little. He went to the door and took off his hood, revealing his face. Meanwhile, Simon saw him on the cameras and thought, the meeting was scheduled for tomorrow, and he came today? Where's the snowmobile? MC was starting to lose his patience, calling Shu Hao an idiot and exclaiming, how dare he do this to him? He'll shoot him right now. He got nervous and asked him not to shoot, saying he could open the door. He just needed to try again. He looked into the camera and whispered, he worked so hard for this, he can't miss this chance. And Simmons said that if he tried anything, he would finish him off, then opened the door, and they entered without hindrance. Once inside the building, Zhang Yi looked around and only became more convinced that anything could be done with money, and Shu Hao pointed to the end of the corridor, saying, they should go to that door. It leads to the shelter. Seeing them walking, Seaman decided to release the gas and press the button, after which the hatches in the ceiling opened and they got excited. Gas came out of them. Nothing was visible. Only their voices could be heard. They were arguing. MC, furious, called Shu Hao an idiot and ordered him to open the door immediately, or he would kill him, and he laughed in response and told him to stop resisting. He was a dead man anyway. Just let him accept his fate. He needed his supplies. He told him not to even dream of it. He would kill him, and then he exclaimed, so maybe he should risk shooting? If he died, he was finished anyway. Seaman was happy with the situation. He did two things at once, but MC was prepared. He had been sitting in a gas mask this whole time, and now he was collecting sleeping gas in his space. Seeing the door opening, he took off the gas mask and decided to just wait for Simon to come out and shoot him. But it wasn't him who came out. He quickly lay down on the floor, pretending to fall asleep, and began cursing Shu Hao in his thoughts. He knew that he hadn't told him about the other people. While this man was dealing with Shu Hao, He opened his eyes and thought, isn't this by any chance that famous actor Lin Gae? Rumor had it that he was on good terms with Simon. No wonder he was here too. Lin Jae threw the two of them over his shoulders, then came to Simon and threw them on the floor. He started tying them up and said that this guy really was an idiot. He was so easy to handle. Simon asked, did he really think he couldn't handle such trash? Was it for nothing that he invested so much money here? After finishing with them, Lin Gae offered him a ride when they took his snowmobile and saw what the situation was like outside. Simon added that they could also get some food at the same time, at which point Zhang Yi released gas that immediately affected them. Lin Gae felt sick. Simon laughed and told him to stop shaking, and he said that he was fine. But why did he become sick? MC successfully freed himself from the ropes, and when they both fell asleep, he approached them and said that they shouldn't have opened their mouths so early. After tying them up in a special way, he took their weapons, golden pistols, and remarked that they looked good but were useless. He decided to look around and left the room. Seeing the luxurious interior, he thought that he really deserved the title of Moneybags. His jaw dropped from luxury. He went into another room where a spacious garden spread out, and he was surprised. And this place is worth 1 billion? There are even plants here. This is a beautiful place, and now it belongs to him. He went up to the second floor. There was a game room, a restroom, a pet room, and a room with a waterbed. The first thing he decided to check out was the room with the waterbed. When he went there, he didn't expect to see naked girls at all, and he noted that in their country the rich also have their secrets. He went to the room with cats and dogs and wondered if this guy really breeds all these animals. When he entered the room, he saw a bunch of girls in animal costumes. One of them crawled up to him and, in tears, called him a prince, saying that they knew they were wrong. She grabbed his leg and asked him to let them out. They would do whatever he asked, or let him give them a little more time. He roughly pushed her away and realized why there was not a single living soul around, and then he killed them. After that, he went to the security room. In the center of the shelter, there are a lot of buttons and displays here, so you can feel like a real engineer. Looking at the cameras, he found out that there is a sports ground and a shooting range. Later, he will need to test his strength. He went to check the other rooms, but he could not even enter them because they had a biometric lock. He gave up for now, because to study everything here, he will have to turn to the creator of this place. He returned to the two, poured water on them so that they would wake up faster, and Simon exclaimed, how did he do it? He answered him that you need to have an ace up your sleeve to survive the apocalypse. He pointed a gun at him and asked him to change the subject. For example, is he ready to cooperate with him? Then he would spare his life. Simon became excited and agreed to discuss everything, but only if he spared his life, and Zhang Yi decided to be straightforward. His goal was to find a stable place to live. It was too dangerous outside. He had few supplies, and the temperature was uninhabitable. His shelter was big enough to let him in, right? The guy was surprised and asked, did he just want to move here? Didn't he plan to kill him and become the master of this place? He told him that there was no need. His shelter was so big that even 100 people wouldn't make a difference. He didn't like killing people without a good reason. Moreover, he hoped that they could become friends. Simon smiled and asked in disbelief, did he really want to befriend him? He confirmed this and added that because of this catastrophe, it was unclear when all this would end, but sooner or later, society would return to normal. And he thought that for a small person like him, the chance to befriend him was a real find. Won't he help him achieve greatness in the future? He jumped at the opportunity and promised to help him in any endeavor, then thought, it seems this guy thinks the blizzard will end soon. He's afraid of the old order and will not dare to kill him. He asked what he wanted. He would give him everything he had, and he answered him that since he decided to cooperate with him, he would not ask for much. They will live here together, but he needs the instructions for using the shelter. He clarified that if he gives it to him, he will promise to keep them alive. He answered him with a smirk that, as he said earlier, he is not used to killing people indiscriminately, and when all this is over, he hopes to remain his friend. Simon was still hesitant, but he decided to trust him and took him to the security room and showed him the manual. MC smiled and announced himself as the new owner of this shelter, and then fell silent. Simon became nervous and asked, what's wrong? If he's checked everything, let him untie him. He smirked and told him to wait a minute, then turned sharply to him and stabbed him in the neck. He helped him sit up and advised him to calm down and take a deep breath. He would feel a little dizzy at first, but that was normal. The pain would soon go away. Simon's face showed complete bewilderment, but he had done everything he asked. So why did he decide to kill him? Zhang Yi apologized to him, but he had no need to keep useless trash. After killing that actor, he stacked the bodies in a corner and began to clean up. He glanced at Shu Hao and thought that he had dealt with the most problematic part. Now there were the easier ones left. He finally came to his senses, looked around, wondering where he was, and seeing Zhang Yi, he asked excitedly, did it work? He looked at the bodies of the two and asked in surprise, how did he deal with them? He told him that he had his own tricks. Simon was just trash. He didn't need to know anything else. Shu Hao began to take out his anger on the dead man, kicking him, and MC pointed to the backpack, saying that it was his reward. He turned to him in anticipation, opened the backpack, and seeing a pile of supplies, was very happy and called Zhang Yi a cool guy. If he needed any help in the future, he should just tell him. He pulled the two into his space and said that he checked the shelter's supplies and realized that Simon had left only pitiful crumbs. The energy to operate the shelter would only last for 5 years, so there was not much to gain from this place. Shuhao became nervous and asked what he was talking about, and he asked in response, doesn't he understand? Simon used up most of the supplies before they arrived. These things in the backpack would be enough for him to survive outside for some time. Shuhao exclaimed indignantly that he couldn't do that. He probably just hid everything. He couldn't do that to him. Did he take him for a fool? Did he want to make him believe that there weren't enough resources here to kick him out, and then just move in himself? He wouldn't leave. He was the one who told him about this hideout, even if he didn't think he could kick him out that easily. MC asked with a smirk. Did he think he was trying to deceive him? And why would he do that? He exclaimed. Wasn't he used to treating people like that? He assured him that if he kicked him out, he would tell everyone what he really was, and the time would come when someone would definitely get even. Zhang Yi really didn't like his threats. In that case, he had no reason to leave him alive, so he shot him and said that anger doesn't make you stronger. Strength must be there from the start. Initially, he planned to let him live a little longer, but why is he asking for trouble? After that, he went to the recreation area, sat down on the couch, and thought about bringing his favorite doctor here. As for Uncle Yu, he could leave the apartment to him since he had a better place. The old place could be used as a backup base, and leaving Uncle Yu in the apartment was his way of repaying him for his kindness. Besides, he would keep an eye on it while he was gone. He promised to find him a new woman, but there was no need to rush. He'd better do what Simon was doing. He poured himself some alcohol, returned to the couch and turned on the TV, getting foreign channels. This seemed strange to him. It was unlikely that a disaster could somehow affect the transmitted signal, or something like that. How did he do it? Or did he have all the channels in the world? He went down to the basement and found a server there, which even surprised him. Although he doesn't fully understand how it all works, he can definitely say that the network here is powerful. He's sure the signal here is super strong, thanks to which he will be able to access more information. He went online and found out something. According to estimates, only about 2 billion will survive the catastrophe. Almost half the planet's population was destroyed in just a month. If things continue like this, only 5% of the population will remain in the future. But there's something more interesting than that. There have been a lot of reports about mutants and people with superpowers. You saw their photos. It looks like most of these people were disfigured by mutation due to radiation. So far, the number of mutants on the planet is not very high, but there are surely people like him who hide their abilities. The outside world is still dangerous. Then it would be better for him to stay in the shelter. He left the house and was about to return to the city for his girlfriend, but someone called out to him. He immediately turned around and pointed a gun at the person, asking who she was. The woman asked him not to worry so much. She had something to tell him. Taking a closer look at her face, he immediately recognized her, and his hostility towards her disappeared. This was Yanmi, a famous Chinese model, the cherished dream of the entire male population of the country. She said that she had not eaten anything for 3 days. Could he take her with him? She did not want to die. He noted that things were not easy for everyone now, but if she wanted to go with him, she should find a good reason for it. She nervously pursed her lips and then declared she just wanted to eat. She was ready to do literally anything for food. He looked at her lips, his face immediately blushed, and he was probably already imagining how she could thank him. Pulling himself together, he headed into the house and told her to follow him. She asked, "Isn't this Simon's house?" He told her that it was his house now, after which they went inside and she thanked him for letting her in. "So what is his relationship with the owner of this house?" he asked. "Does she know Simon?" She told him that everyone in her circle knew him, and he asked with a smirk, "Are they friends?" She replied, "Not exactly. He's just a famous person from a wealthy family. They sometimes meet at events. People in his circle don't take people like her seriously." He poured her some tea and told her to forget about him and to remember. He owns this place now. She thanked him and drank the tea, after which she asked if she could use his bathroom. He allowed her, and she went into the shower, stood under the hot water, and thought that she hadn't done this in so long. It seemed like she had hit the jackpot, and she would enjoy every minute spent with this guy.